A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Matt Williams got a brilliant start from the third row of the grid.
He's gone, he's hit him, he's straight off at the chase.
A half-second lead over the simmering car in the background.
He has it. Oh, he's round on the last lap.
There's a massive, massive accident.
Next to the inside, what a move, what a move.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to round number 5 out of 8 rounds for the Automobilista Australia GT3 Series, Season 2 of the GT3 Series for 2019. We're over the halfway point. We are now into the second half of the season, starting tonight with round 5 here at the Circuito de Jerez in Spain. One of many Spanish circuits that adorn the Spanish country, but only one selected for this GT3 series, our first trip here. So a bit of an unknown for some of the drivers tonight. And of course, the difference tonight, we go for a 90-minute race rather than the, as normal, 60-minute race. So 3 out of the next 4 rounds are 90-minute races. So a little something different to add to the drivers' headaches in terms of learning the circuit. They've got an extra 30 minutes on the clock tonight. My name is Nether, Steve DeVries in commentary here, and as per usual, it's great to welcome in not only to commentary for GT3 as per normal, but actually into studio for the very, very first time here in Melbourne. Josh Bagsy Bags, it's great to have you on board, but not only that, great to have you in studio as well, my friend.
Yeah, it's good to be. It's going to be a lot easier doing it in person now. Going to be able to see exactly what each other's seeing instead of sort of trying to have to guess at it. So made the long trek over to Melbourne, and we should be able to do most of the GT3 commentaries from here now, which will be quite good.
Yeah, no, I've been looking forward to you getting over. It's been a while since we actually shared a box in person. The last time we shared a box together was round 5, Victorian State Circuit Racing Championships last year down at Phillip Island, which we saw quite a number of things there.
Just over a year ago, ended up doing 3 or 4 different categories together because they didn't have other people for the categories. So yeah, it's nice it's a lot easier when you're in person because we're able to actually see each other and pick up on each other's cues and stuff when something happens. It's definitely, if anyone who listened to the ASC Bathurst commentary for the Bathurst 1000 they did with 4 of us all in the one room, it was very helpful as well. It's so much easier when you're together in a room rather than on other sides of the country.
Yeah, absolutely. I tend to agree with you there. Hans Brunswick's normally in commentary here when we do Super 2 for AMS Oz. He'll be here a bit later on in the next couple of days for the penultimate round of the Super 2 series for 2019, the Sandown Retro round coming up on Thursday. So between now and then, though, we've got this 90-minute endurance race to get through. So just waiting on the practice session to finish up before we head into qualifying, but we'll take a quick look at the circuit and then we'll come back to the points in between the break. So here is the circuit for tonight, the Jerez circuit in Spain, one of 4 Spanish circuits that I said before normally adorn the countryside of Spain. Bagsy, you and I are both MotoGP fans. This is one of 4 circuits that MotoGP visits on a regular basis. Of course, they've got this one, Jerez, Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, Motorland Aragon, and of course coming up next weekend for the final race of the season at Valencia. So we're quite intimately familiar with this circuit. This is the MotoGP layout. There is a chicane version of this layout that is around the last couple of corners, which we're not using tonight, which is commonly known as the Ayrton Senna chicane. But we did think there was probably going to be a couple of accidents there, so good result and good planning by the organisers to go with the MotoGP layout. 90 minutes, expecting to be about 50 laps, or 50 to 54 laps, which is good to see. Good long distance race. And a couple of pointers there to look out for, and you've picked up on these, Bagsy. These are your points that pretty much are on here. The pit exit's got a huge feed-in question mark down into turn number 1. There's a tricky sequence of corners from turn 1 all the way through to turn 4. Changes the direction, long radius corners, slow medium corners as well. And of course the traditional passing zones at the dry stack corner at turn 6 and the final hairpin at turn 18. It's going to be a bit of a challenge here tonight for these guys.
Yeah, it certainly will. And at a circuit that is fairly steeped in history as well, of course, people who follow Formula One, it's had the 97 championship decider between Schumacher and Villeneuve, and no championship decider yet, but extra points available being a 90-minute race, 25 for the race win versus 18 regularly.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned as well about the championship decider in 97 as well. A lot of people remember that that was famous for the qualifying session that actually had the 3 exact times that were set by 3 different drivers. And of course, the one who set the time first was the one that got the pole that day.
Yeah, I believe it was Michael Schumacher, Heinz Harald Frentzen, and Villeneuve all set the same times. I think it was Schumacher. Was it Schumacher, Villeneuve, Frentzen potentially? I'm not sure exactly, but yeah, I mean it's rare enough to have 2 people get at the same time. We see it happen maybe once or twice a season in Formula One, usually in Q2 when people are on different tires. But yeah, having 3 on the same qualifying session is pretty incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're now going to go and take a little bit of a look and see what's happening as the qualifying session is literally getting underway. And the first man out onto the circuit is Noah Turra, Lone Wolf and Cubs Racing Porsche. Now, he's running solo for this team tonight. Greg Turra has unfortunately had some work commitments come up. He's unable to make it. Also, Brian Walsh, Glenn Miles, sadly out of action tonight as well. And Walsh is following along with the stream with after looking after his folks at the moment. Been a few little bits of troubles in the family, so hopefully the family's okay, Brian. Looking forward to seeing if you will get back for Super 2 later on this week. But Noah Turra actually spent quite a bit of time of the practice session, Bagsy, at the top of the pile, which is a little bit interesting. We don't know if this means it's a little bit of a mixed up order with some drivers having a bit of a struggle with this circuit to begin with, or whether that's just a bit of a difference of the low fuel runs versus the race fuel runs. But I guess this is what the qualifying session's about to weed out now, is who was sandbagging and who was actually playing the game.
Yeah, and we find that people are sandbagging fairly often in the practice sessions here. We had a quick gander at some of the practice times through the sessions that have been run this week, and we saw times as low as 1 minute 40 for people like Will Devonish. So it's sort of to be expected that it might change a little bit over the course of this session. Yeah, Noah Turra at the top, but I'll expect him being near the top as well, because he's been getting more and more pace as the season goes on.
Yeah, he has. In actual fact, we have had confirmation during the week that he is confirmed as Silver Cup. So he was listed down as Pro on the standing sheet for some time, which we weren't 100% sure if that was true or not. And it turned out that it was incorrect. He is actually Silver Cup. So that means he is currently, for looking down here, they still haven't corrected it. He's actually second in Silver Cup overall behind Termo, who had a fantastic last round at Hockenheimring. So looking forward to seeing what Noah Turra can do. He's not the first man out there on the circuit that's going to set a flying lap, though. I think Brenton Foley is the one who's currently out on circuit and ahead of him as where we stand at the moment. Noah Turra has just set 29.1 through Sector 1, which is actually the quickest sector time so far of this session to begin with. Brenton Foley having gone through in a 29.2, Josh Benn in a 29.3, and Coulston and Lime Mitch in 29.9s.
Yeah, it's all looking 29 seems to be the order of the day for the first sector, but we'll see how they go. Foley's the only person to set a Sector 2 time, and he's he's 1.4 faster than Lime Mitch than the second one. So the second sector, a bit more in the way of corners and a little bit more complex. So we'll see how he goes. He set a faster time than Foley. Sorry, Noah Turra's not quite set a faster time than Foley, about 600ths of a second between them. So the advantage is still with Turra as Foley comes across the line to set that first time, 141.078. So yeah, we said that 140 is on the cards, and we're already very close with the first flying lap.
So Foley sets the early benchmark with a 41 flat, Lime Mitch a 44.8, and Noah Turra now just dropped a bit of time in that final sector, but not by much. That is very, very close. So good initial opening run from Noah Turra. Foley purple through the middle and the last, and then Noah Turra purple through the first sector. But you're right, Bagsy, not a great deal in that at all in terms of sector times. Almost identical all the way through. So going to be interesting to see if Noah Turra can mix it in. He's actually pressed on here as well, I believe. Let's see what he comes up with on the sector time. In actual fact, yes, he is pressing on, and he's already 2/10 to the good over Foley's time, but he's had a little bit of a wiggle there on the exit of turn 5. It was a Cedo Pons corner, now coming down to the one corner called Dry Sack, which I don't know how this has actually come up with the name Dry Sack.
Devonish has gone top. He had a very good
There he
final
goes.
sector. 33.5 in the final sector for a 140.35 overall. So he's jumped more than 7/10 ahead. But we did see Noatara already going faster. Noatara was a 10th faster in that first sector. So we'll see if he can string together the rest of this lap.
He's on his way to the second sector point, and in actual fact, he's dropped a fair bit of time.
Yeah,
Not
he's
only
lost a
that,
lot there.
yeah, he's dropped a fair bit from his PB as well. So he was up on his own PB, up on the current provisional time on pole at that particular time. He's actually dropped a half a second, so not going to be a good lap for him on this one. Just coming through the section that we mentioned a few moments ago, where the centre chicane would normally be, but using the cut out, or the wider corner, which is the Alex Crivier corner as it's called, which bypasses the centre chicane. That's down at turn 11. Turret stays third.
Yeah, so look, he ran wide through the first corner of sector 2 and just lost a bit of time there for Noatara, so that's what cost him that lap.
Will Devonish is pressing on, 17 thousandths to the good through sector 1. And might be getting just a little bit of a toe, I think, through sector 2. Might be getting just a little bit of a toe here from Termo, who's ahead in some parts. Really wrestling it through the second to last corner. That car looked like it was about to jump sideways on him. And actually using quite a lot of the road. Already had 2 wheels on the ripple strip on the right-hand side before the turn-in for the final corner, the hairpin. Does he go sub 41? No. Lost it all in sector 3.
Brenton Foley's going fast at the moment. He is 3/10 up on his personal best and 2/10 up on the best time going through sector 1. Lewis Wedding's only just come out on the track now. I think he's leaving. He's just left the pits now, so he's a bit of a late mover there, along with Steve Bolger. Both fast drivers haven't set any time yet.
Well, Brenton Foley very, very wide through the weeds as he speared through, I think that's turn 7 and 8, and he's backed out of that lap, so he's put that to bed.
That's unfortunate. That was going to be a good lap.
It was actually. Now you're right, we've got 3 drivers on an outlap that haven't set a time just yet. Lewis Wedding, Steve Bolger and Coops, the only drivers yet to put their opening times on the board. Lewis Wedding, where's he at there on the circuit at the moment? He is coming around, I think that's turn 5. Oh no, Atara's very, very wide through Cedo Pons corner.
Yes, that's what cost him his fast lap last time as well. So he's a bit scruffy through there, so he'll need to improve that if he wants to set a time close to pole, but I think he is capable of it.
I think he's actually been handed a track violation for that indiscretion as well, going wide through that corner, because it didn't register a time through sector 1, but I don't know if he's actually on an outlap or not.
So Osrob potentially coming up to get a fast lap here.
Well, let's check in and see what Osrob happens to be doing. He's currently 4th overall, goes to the line, big improvement, massive improvement on his own PB. Not too far away from pole either. That's a very, very smart lap from the 555 JP's Sim Shed Porsche.
Yeah, 7 minutes to go. You can't count him out yet. He'll have at least another run, potentially 2, to have a go at it. At the moment, he's just having fun in a gravel trap.
Well, let's have a look and see what the first of the runners that haven't set a time yet are up to. And this is Coops. He's the one that is at the head of this train of 3 cars yet to set a time. He's just coming through what appears to be the right-hander at turn number 10. Using a fair bit of grass there, actually. That's not going to do his chances any good. There's the cutout for the centre chicane. There's the exit for the centre chicane that we're bypassing tonight. So through to turns 11, turn 12. A little bit smarter than Will Devonish got through there. Wasn't all crossed up. But he's going to put a time on the board. But he's very, very deep the final corner.
Oh, that's not going to help him.
No, certainly not. Out there in the marbles, you get no grip out there. He's going to put a time on the board to begin with, and it's going to be about a 47, I'd imagine. No, it's a mid-46, so the start-finish line comes up a little bit quicker than he would have thought.
Good enough for 9th, though. Just ahead of Rhodey, and Wedding and Bolger haven't set a time yet, though, so he will drop a little bit. If you're looking out there and wondering why we're not talking about Philip Boak, that is because it's actually Josh Ben in his car He is filling in for PBF Race Engineering today, so I believe that so they will get team points for that.
That is correct. We have had that confirmed during the practice session. That would be the case. Steve Bolger's on a very, very smart lap. This could be into the 40s, and it's row 2 for Steve Bolger. He was very, very good up to the second sector point. He was tracking for pole, so he's lost a bit there in the final sector. So that's a good, smart lap for Steve Bolger. But now our attention turns to Lewis Wedding. Now, he was on an out lap, and he's still on an out lap, so maybe he's butchered his lap and going again. So Lewis is leaving this very, very late, Bagsy.
Yeah, we've got 5 minutes left in the session, so that's going to be a bit of a problem for him. If he's not careful, he will not see a lap time at all, because, you know, a track cut, bang, your lap time's gone. You have to go again for another one, and you might decide that if you did put enough fuel in, because generally these guys will only fill up for 3, maybe 4 laps total, so that's your out lap is one of them, and then maybe 2 more. So yeah, he's going to have to be careful, because you don't want to make a mistake, have a poor lap, and then end up back down the field. But if anyone can make the most of that, it is Lewis Wedding. He has won 3 of the 4 races so far.
Well, let's follow along with Lewis Wedding as he starts his next attempt at putting a time on the board. So up to turn number 1, the aptly named Expo 92 corner. We're not sure why that's the case.
Is that aptly named?
I don't know. I'm just using it as a figure of speech. Michelin corners turn 2, and then now the sequence of a couple of left-handers for turns 3 and 4. These are part of a tricky sequence of corners. There's really only one line through here. And then down to Cedo Pond's corner at turn 5 is long, medium to high speed, sweeping right-hander. We've seen a few people struggle there. Lewis manages to keep it on line very, very smartly. Quickest man through sector 1 at the moment. That's very, very, very quick, with 2 3/4 tenths up at the moment. Braking for turn 6, dry sack corner. One of the prime overtaking spots that we'll be looking for tonight at the end of the back straight. Through the next sequence of left-handers, another pair of left-handers, turns 7 and 8. The next corner goes right, turn number 9, Angel Nieto corner, which is who the circuit is named after in real life, Circuito de Jerez, Angela Nieto. Another
He's up.
right-hander at turn 10, so he's maintained his advantage through the first 2 sectors. Through Alex Crivier corner, turn 11. Turn 12, very, very high speed. You've got to be able to make sure you stay on line, and that's very, very good. He used all the curb and did not get a piece of grass up. He's gone deep.
Oh, he's not troubled the apex there.
No.
Slightly. That's going to cost him this, at least a pole position time.
Yeah, and he's going to probably, that's going to be enough, I think, to probably put him on. Oh, he actually has missed out the
never
pole.
mind. Yeah, but that by less than I thought he would have. I thought that was going to be half a second down and potentially not even front row, but that's a good recovery, and we know he can go faster. Is a 139 on the cards.
Well, we have seen some 139s during the practice session this week. Noah Turra and Steve Bolger, the only men to go sub 1 minute 40. Will Devonish a 40.1 and Devonish a 40.3. He's close to his PB at the moment. He's probably the one that's more than likely, I would say, to go under that 140 if he can make it happen. But where's Steve Bolger? Steve Bolger's currently 5th on the road, and he's about to set another time. In actual fact, Steve Bolger jumps up to P2. That's a big, big improvement for Steve Bolger. He's done a 40.396, so he got it hooked up. So he's provisionally on the front row. Displaces Lewis Wedding. Wedding has pressed on, but he's done a 28.9 through Sector 1, which is not a purple sector, but it's still very, very quick. It's not better than what he did last time around. Devonish ahead of him on the circuit, I believe. Yes, he is. So Devonish has got to put down a time and hopefully hope that in the next minute and a half that he doesn't get displaced. He'll get another lap. He's down a 10th at the second sector timing split. Bagsy, what else are you seeing out there at the moment?
There are a lot of people going faster. Oh, that's a big speed. Oh, no, that's affected Termo, because Termo was someone who was going, he almost went purple. He was doing some very fast sectors and was actually looking at being within half a second of pole. So that's unfortunate. That's cooked that lap for him. He'll get a go at one more if he's got fuel on board. But yeah, there were a lot of people lighting up the timing screens. I'm not sure if anyone's actually improving though.
Yeah, that was a very, very hairy moment for Will Devonish, but he would have had to just cool those tyres off, and he will get another crack with 40-odd seconds left on the clock. Let's go back to see what's happening with Lewis Wedding now. He's bailed out of this lap. He's just coming up to the final couple of corners now, and just in preparation for his last shot at this. Or is he? No, he's actually on a lap now.
He's on his next lap now, yeah.
Yeah, so that means that timing beam that we saw when he crossed, he was actually 13 or 14 seconds down. So... that was on the time that he'd set previously. So this is his last shot at this. Now, anyone coming across the line now, I think fifth place man of Ozrob will be the next one to get across the line. Now, he's not going to get another lap on at the moment.
He's going to be about 2 seconds shy, unfortunately, so he's not quite going to get there. So this is Ozrob's lap. As he comes across the line, we'll see where he is provisionally on the grid.
Oh, very
Second,
nice.
Only 300ths off of pole, but plenty of people on laps. Next person to come across the line is going to be Noah Tara, so we'll see if he's able to do anything about that.
Have a look at the split, though. The split is very, very good for Noah Tara.
Wow.
0.3 of a second. If he can keep this going, he's going to certainly make his old man very, very happy, who's watching along in the stream at the moment. He says it's a bit different to watching his son than it is to racing in person, but he's only got a couple of corners to go. At the moment, it's a provisional JP Simshed front row lockout with Porsches 1 and 2. Can it be Porsche 1, 2 and 3?
Noah's struggled with this last sector though, so this is where he has to make up all the time. If he does, he will be on pole provisionally.
Got it!
He is, wow.
Great lap!
40.19. Brilliant lap. We'll see if it gets beaten.
Well, Wedding has aborted his lap, and so too, I believe, has Foley. They have indeed aborted their laps. Next man to get across the line is going to be Josh Ben. Turmo jumps up to P7.
And Ben's the last one out there, so this is it. And he's not going to beat it from the looks of it.
He's gone sixth.
So Noah Tara on pole.
Wow, what an interesting qualifying session that one certainly was. It's a Porsche 1, 2, 3 on the front row. It was going to be a JP Simshed lockout, but Noah Tara gets the lap in when it counts, and it's a Porsche 991 on pole from a pair of Porsche 997s.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I was saying how I thought Tara had a chance at getting pole, or at least near pole, but I'm surprised at how well he's done there. It probably helped by Lewis Wedding not getting his lap in there, and potentially Bolger and Ozrob having some issues too. But he was the one who set the time when it counted, the 140.195. That is very well done, and one of the best times we've seen through the whole week.
That is certainly an understatement. That is his best lap. Actually, no, it's not actually. His best lap was a 39.975, so very, very close to getting to his own PB, but he will be absolutely stoked with that, and I'm sure Greg Tara, watching along on the stream, is going to be very, very proud. He's at work, believe it or not, and he's watching his son go round, so he's certainly going to be very proud papa. Well, this certainly throws a huge spanner in the works, Bagsy. This is something we probably didn't expect. It's 1, 2, 3, Tara, Devonish and Ozrob, and then we've got Wedding and Foley a bit further back. Now, Foley did say offline to me that this is not a circuit that he's a big fan of, so tends to think he's going to struggle here a bit tonight.
Yeah, well, we see Josh Ben in the Sister Viper is now ahead of him qualifying. He qualified 5th to Foley's 6th, so Josh Ben coming in and sort of showing up Brenton Foley a little bit, getting him... it might get under Foley's collar a little bit. We'll see how he reacts in the race, because it is a 90-minute race, so anything can happen there. So we've got 11 people total as well. Steve Bolger, I forget exactly where he qualified because he's just rejoined the server, but he was one of the fastest people in practice. He actually is the owner of the fastest lap time so far overall, including all the practice sessions during the week, with a 1:39.7. But that was most likely on some slightly more rubbered in track. So that's probably why he's got that one.
Yeah, Steve Bolger was right up there for a little while as well. He was, I think, about 0.3 off the pole, so he'll be inside the first couple of rows. There's a few drivers that are just leaving and coming back to the game just to reset themselves before the warm-up session commences, and then the race session gets underway. Now, we'll return now to the drivers' points for the season after 4 rounds of competition, which is what we didn't do before we went live with as part of the broadcast before qualifying. So as it stands, Lewis Wedding still on top, despite being beaten by Brenton Foley at the last round at the Hockenheim Ring. So Foley finally manages to get a win on the board this season over Lewis Wedding. So the gap there is just 11 points. So still very, very tight. And that's the way that the points are set, to make it nice and tight all the way to the end of the season. Will Devonish is in a good position tonight to start to eat into the advantage of the two leaders as it stands right now, being on the second grid starting spot. So if he can get a good launch and manage to stay toward the top end of the field and ahead of those two for the next 90 minutes, then he'll be in a good position. Steve Bolger and Osrob, they're currently tied on the points, but Steve Bolger ahead on a count back. They both have a third place, and Steve Bolger has a fourth, which is the next best result, so that's why he's ahead on the standings there. Excuse me. Lai Mitch and Greg Turra. Turra's obviously missing tonight. And then we get back to a couple of Silver Cup runners, so Termo and Noah Turra. Termo's 8th on the standings there, and the leader in Silver Cup by virtue of his 4th place finish last round, which is great to see. That was a fantastic drive from Termo. And Noah Turra just a point behind. So let's look to see what those guys can do over the course of the next 90 minutes. Phil Boak, well, he's absent this weekend. He's got some other commitments that are on. Mike Coulston's just managed to make it back into the server, and we haven't seen Brendan Ross for a couple of weeks. So you have got an update on that potentially as well, Bagsy, from what we heard in the pit practice over the course of the last hour or so.
I think I can't actually remember why he wasn't here. Unfortunately, I was just going to say that Noah Turra is in good place to jump up a few places this round. He's qualified he's qualified on pole, fair way ahead of Termo, who's right next to him, as well as Lime Mitch as well. Greg Turra obviously not here watching tonight, so potentially 3 or 4 people he can jump. And if Bolger, Osrob, Devonish, Foley, or Wedding have, well, not Wedding and Foley, but Devonish, Bolger, and Osrob, if they have a bad day and Turra has a good one, he's going to be right up with them.
Yeah, we actually just got the word through again that it looks like it's possibly a disagreement of cars between the FCR stablemates as to why we haven't seen Brendan Ross nor Matt Scruff Williams for a little while. Now that's unconfirmed, but that we believe that that's the case. So we'll wait to see what happens there in the next couple of weeks, whether or not they make a reappearance or not. But that's the point standings as they are. There's a handful of other drivers that are just outside that top 12 as well. So Josh Ben, Brian Walsh and Coops are also just outside them. Glenn Miles not here this weekend. Ben Rhodes, he's been having some dramas with his game, so hopefully he's able to get in there and continue on. He's been having a few black screens, so hopefully he's right to continue on. So there's still a handful of drivers just outside the 12 on the points graphic there that are still in contention, can still take some of those minor placings away. And we've got about 5 minutes left between now and when the race will start. It's just the driver's briefing, I believe, has just been wound up.
Yeah, it looks like there's some activity in the pit lane as people start to run into the wall, as Lime Mitch has just done, of the pit lane. And I believe it's either Josh Ben or Brenton Foley making their way down the pit lane now. And have seen the stricken car just disappear and come out again. There we go. He hasn't hit the wall this time. Good job, Mitch.
That'll be that's the car belonging to Josh Ben. So that's
Josh Ben.
That's leaving the pit lane. So we're just perched here at the exit of pit lane. Now we did mention before Josh Ben is running the PBF Team Vodafone car belonging to Phil Boak, and you can see that the difference between the two cars to keep an eye out for is the Bundy Rum windshield banner on the Josh Ben / Phil Boak car. That's the giveaway that he is in that car. And then Brenton Foley, I believe, has got the ARW logo across the front of his windscreen banner. So that's the differences between the two.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And we're seeing some practice starts as well there by the looks of it from the Acura there of... Who was in the Acura? Mike Coulston, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, Mike.
2 Acuras. There's the Mike Coulston and the Coops are the 2 Acuras in the field. And now we're just seeing the Steve Bolgers coming down the pit lane here as well. So now we're just waiting. We did have 12 for a little while, and we're just waiting to see if everybody's managing to get back in. I think Noah Turra might be. Yes, he is. Noah Turra, our pole sitter, is the one that's currently absent at the moment, just probably getting himself sorted and back into the game with a handful of minutes left on the clock. Let's see who's out there at the moment. So here is Josh Ben that we were just mentioning a few moments ago. Now, that's a little bit strange. Just look like we're about to venture off the road there for a moment. Now, this is typically the time, Bagsy, where we will see some drivers practice getting on and off pit road. They won't necessarily complete the stops, but they will get into the lane. They'll find out where the lane is, how far they can push the limits, and then how they get back out onto the circuit. And let's see if that's the case. And in the case of Josh Ben, that is precisely what he is doing. Pit entry there just on the approach to turn 13. And actually doing a full service stop just by the look of it, just to see how things go. But then the biggest thing that we did talk about is very briefly at the beginning of the night, if we can pick up somebody that's on their way, and that is the feed-in for pit road back onto the circuit, which is actually on the racing line for turn 1.
Yeah, it's basically at the turning point, or maybe slightly after. I don't think there's anyone actually coming out of the pits at the moment. There's a couple going. We've just seen Will Devonish have a spin on the way, and you can see the line where he just span at. That is where the pit limit starts. So you have to be down to speed at that point. It helps that it's on a hairpin, so you're already going slowly anyway. But it really helps to attack it, because that's where you can gain and lose most time in your pit stop. It's very close in there, as we see Will Devonish just transfer through. So you'll see where we feed out here is essentially you're right there for the corner for the braking zone. So looking in your mirrors as you're coming out is going to be very important, because if you come out directly in front of someone who's on the brakes, they're not going to be able to avoid you. They're just going to continue on in a straight line, or at best case scenario, let off the brakes, turn the wheel and spin into you, and it's just not going to be a good day either way. We don't know if it was mentioned in the driver's briefing, but you can presume that it was, and that there will be penalties that come to people who bugger up other people's races.
Yeah, no doubt. It'll be a very, very hot topic, I'd imagine. The making sure you're on the right part of the circuit with getting on and off pit road. But also, it'll be a case of everybody will need to communicate with everybody else. Now, I'm just looking into the Discord just to see who's there at the moment. I actually can't see Will Devonish, nor can I see Ozrob in there at the moment, but I can see most of the other drivers in there at present. So if they're not in there and they can't communicate with each other, then obviously they'll have to use the mini-map. They'll have to keep their eyes open for them. They'll have to be aware of their surroundings at all times to be 100% sure that they don't interfere with anybody getting back onto the racing circuit. It shouldn't be too bad. We've only got the 12 cars that are here tonight, so we should have a bit of room on the circuit.
We've only got 45 seconds left, and I haven't seen our pole sitter Noah Toro come back into the server yet, so I'm just wondering what's happening there. Hopefully no issues there. That'd be very unfortunate after that very good pole lap if he was not able to participate in the race.
Yeah, I'm noticing he's in the Discord server at the moment. He's just currently muted, so hopefully it's just a minor issue and he's able to get himself sorted. I mean, we have seen his father Greg in ARW competition a handful of times as well, have some internet dramas up there in the Adelaide Hills, so hopefully it's nothing too serious. If he's in the server, it means that the internet's running. He's just probably trying to get his game and get loaded back into the server. So hopefully it's not closed the session down to a point where he can't get back in. That would be disastrous, but you'll need to be in very, very shortly, otherwise the race session is going to start and you won't be able to join a closed race session.
Yeah, we've just hit the end of warm-up now, so yeah, you'll have to be in quite soon, or that will be very unfortunate. We're not sure. Wedding is the server administrator, so I'm sure if something is very wrong, he'll pull some strings and we'll have a quick reset potentially. But yeah, still not sure what's happening. We're just watching Wedding come in and practice his pit stop, but that is definitely the end of the session there. So you can hear the siren go off and it appears to be very dark. I'm not sure if that is what's...
So actually, I think this is meant to be a normal daylight race, so I don't know what's going on there with the...
No, the lights have just come back on.
There we go, finally.
Someone turned on the sun and we're all good.
Yes, so something happened a little bit unusual there, and we have not seen our pole sitter get back into the server. So this is interesting. He's currently muted in the Discord server, so I'm not sure what's going on here, but this is a little bit unusual. And I think we've actually may have just rolled back potentially to a warm-up session. I'm just looking to see what's happening here. I think Bagsy might just have a bit of a look and see if the server actually has rolled back to warm-up. Maybe we are just waiting.
Because we've got a 10-minute timer in the top corner now, again. So I'm thinking, yeah, we are rolled back into warm-up, and Noatara has entered the game. So maybe there was a problem with him not being able to get into that previous warm-up session, because he's got it straight back in now.
All right, great to see he's back, and we have all 12 cars from the qualifying session back in the server, which is great to see. Bagsy, what about your predictions for this one? This qualifying session, or the qualifying session we've just had, has really thrown a bit of a cat amongst the pigeons here. It's not the kind of top three that we were expecting coming into the night. We kind of expected Lewis Wedding to be right up there, but he did leave his run just a little bit too late, I think, and he's going to, I wouldn't say he's going to have his work cut out for him, but people like Will Devonish are definitely hard men to pass, and passing at this circuit can be a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, there's not the most amount of passing zones, but yeah, like fourth, or I believe it was actually, sorry, fifth for Wedding is definitely not what he was, and seventh for Foley. They were people who were expecting to be in the top three, as they are in the championship, the most consistent drivers, and generally the ones at the point in the field. Seen Will Devonish up there as well, and he's up there this time. So I believe that means he's actually winning in terms of the qualifying standings at the moment, potentially, in terms of consistency at least. But yeah, it's quite interesting that we don't have those championship contenders in the top three. Obviously, the way our points are set out, it keeps it very close, and finishing is the most important thing. So it'll be really all Wedding needs to do is bring it home in the top three for the most part for the rest of the races, and he should win unless Foley wins every single race. But you never know what's going to happen.
No, that's right. And of course, there's this one being a 90-minute race. We've got two more 90-minute races, the second last and the final rounds of the season. So we've got Zandvoort Park coming up in 2 weeks' time. And then after that, there will be the Fuji round, the 90-minute race Fuji round. That's the first round also of the Twilight rounds as well. And then the Twilight race around Adelaide as well, which we've been to before. This is actually a pretty busy time in the land of AMS Oz while we're just sitting there waiting around. There's quite a number. Oh, sorry, we're just seeing our game looks like it's just reloading on us. So we'll just quickly dive back to our holding screen while we wait for a few things to get in order here.
Yeah, it seems like Tara might have been having some issues because he left the game again. So, wondering. So I might see if I can jump down into the race chat server, into the briefing server, and see what's happening there.
It looks like we've worked out it's precisely what's going on. We've just seen messages pop up in the YouTube live chat from Brenton369, who's Brenton Foley. The server is currently set to 3 a.m. and they're trying to get set to 3 p.m. So that's precisely why we ended up with a dark screen when we went to race session. But at least they're going to get that over and done with and sorted. Probably a good point in time, Bagsy. We were just talking about the calendar, so we'll bring up what the GT3 calendar actually is. So we'll have it on screen for everybody right now. So obviously we're halfway through the year, and you can see there that there's approximately 4 races remaining in the next 5 weekends. So we've got a break between here and Zandvoort, which is a 60-minute race, and then from Zandvoort we have 3 in a row, the 24th, the 1st and the 8th, back to back to back across 3 consecutive weekends for GT3. Throw into the mix as well, we have 2 more races left in the AMS Oz Super 2, so we have the race coming up this week on Thursday, the 14th of November. That's the Sandown round, followed by 2 weeks from now, Thursday, the 28th of November. That is the final round at Oran Park. And then keep this in mind as well. These ones will be broadcast over on the Automobilista Australia YouTube page, which will be the final 2 rounds of TCR Oz. So those rounds set to take place on Monday, the 18th of November, which I believe is also a Sandown round, and then the final race will be, or the final race weekend rather, will take place on Monday the 2nd of December, which is the Adelaide Street Circuit. So everything being wound up in the next 4 to 5 weeks in the land of AMS Oz. So that's 3 different series, 8 different races between now and then, and for me, that means 6 commentaries, 4 with yourself, and then also I've got to throw Island Magic into the mix as well.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a very busy time, especially that weekend of Zandvoort there with Island Magic on that weekend. It's good if you like Sandown because we've had the V8s today in Sandown. You can have ASC in Sandown. You can have the Super 2s in Sandown and the TCR Sandown round. The only thing you're missing is a GT3 race in Sandown, which we're not doing because that's enough Sandown really for anyone. If you know you have too much Sandown in your diet, it's not good for you. Anyway, I'm going to stop babbling about Sandown because we've moved to the race session. The problem has been solved. We're no longer starting at 3 in the morning, which would have been funny, but none of the drivers have practiced for it, so it would have been terrible.
Well, you're absolutely right. We have moved to the race session, so let's go back across and get ready to go. Just a few little things being sorted out here. There's our pole sitter. Great to see that he is back in the game and on the circuit. So here we go as the grid starts to form up.
As per usual, Devonish and Wedding taking as long as physically possible to get out onto the grid, just to make things really difficult in case they miss it and have a pit lane start just for their own enjoyment. There they are on the grid. So yeah, we'll be on our way on the formation lap soon and a rolling start.
Well, Bagsy, the grid's yours. Let's go and take a look at it as they roll around this 4-kilometre circuit on the warm-up lap.
So we've got Noah Tara, his first pole position in AMS Oz. So a brilliant job there for him in the Porsche 991, having Porsche supremacy in qualifying. Second place, also in a Porsche, but a 997, Will Devonish. He has been a mainstay on the front row for most, actually I think he might have been on the front row for every single round, potentially. Don't fact check me on that one. Ozrob, yet at the other third Porsche, we've got 3 Porsches, they're the top 3. He's in third for JP Simchet. Steve Bolger for Gravel Rash Racing in the Audi, the red Audi there, in 4th place with a very strong qualifying. He'll be happy to have qualified ahead of 5th place man Lewis Wedding in the GTR. We're used to seeing that a lot further up in qualifying, but he just had some compromised laps, didn't quite make it all the way through. Josh Ben, 6th place, first of the PBF Team Vodafone cars with that Bundaberg sash across the top. He has bragging rights for PBF at the moment as he's filling in for, not Brenton Foley who's behind him, he's filling in for Phil Boak. Brenton Foley is next to him though in his PBF car. He mentioned earlier that they are not so suited to this track and not enjoying it so much. 8th place, Termo for Jack Daniels Racing. He was on a good lap that got compromised in qualifying, so check out him for his race pace. Liam Mitch in the Ferrari 488 guest team in 9th. Mike Coulston in the Acura is 10th, and next to him is Coops in the sister Acura, and bringing up the back of the field in 12th place is Rody in the PBF feeder team.
That's your starting grid for the 5th round of this second season of AMS Oz GT3 World Challenge for 2019. Porsche 1, 2 and 3. First time in a long time we've seen all 3 cars from the same manufacturer in the race occupy the top 3 spots on the grid. Now this will be a new challenge for Noah Tara. He'll just have to, I guess, check himself for the start here. Just remind himself of what that starting procedure is. It would have been reinforced in the briefing and reminded that they cannot put their right foot down hard on that accelerator pedal until they get to the start-finish line. Right, safety car is now peeled off and they are all lining up behind. Now there's a little bit of a break between these two and now they start to form up. There's, I was about to say, there's a few, someone's missing out of line there, I think. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe someone's a bit far forward, but anyway, here we go. And Noah Tara's gone a bit too early, I think there. He was about to check out, and I think he checked up, realising that he'd gone too early.
He's hit the brakes there, so he's disadvantaged himself a little bit there into the first corner.
So So that start has not gone according to plan for Noah Tara. He was just probably a little bit too eager to make sure he held the position into turn number 1, but unfortunately for him, he's checked up and probably done the right thing to avoid a post-race penalty. He's given the lead to Will Devenish for the moment. Still Porsche 1, 2, 3. Steve Bolger behind. Lewis Wedding tucked in behind him, but out in front, Will Devenish is just starting to try and edge away a little bit now. In actual fact, all 3 of the Porsches are starting to edge away right now.
Yeah, it was a good start from all 3 Porsches. Will Devenish took advantage of Noah Tara not quite getting there. The PBF battle, Josh Bennett has dropped behind Brenton Foley. Foley got the better of him. They were side by side through the first 3 corners. As Osrob is under attack here from both Bolger and Lewis Wedding, who looks like he's going to get past Bolger potentially here. Bolger has the preferred line though, and Lewis Wedding has to yield for the moment.
Yeah, Wedding tried to sneak down the inside of dry sack corner. Bolger left the door open, and Wedding went very much walked through that door, but then Steve Bolger shoved him back out and slammed the door in his face and managed to get back ahead. So for the moment, it looks like it's all pretty much well settled down. The only person that hasn't really had the start they wanted is Lime Mitch. He was a lot further up the order, and he's now second to last, just getting back ahead of Rhodey out there on the circuit at the moment. So I think Lime Mitch started, about 7th or 8th place, if memory serves me correctly. He was definitely a lot further up the order.
He only started in 9th. He's 2 positions down on the start, but still, yeah, not the best start for him.
This is an angry little pack already after lap 1. So the two Porsches out front are checked out, Devenish and Tara, and now it is Osrob very much under attack from the Audi belonging to Steve Bolger. Lewis Wedding behind. Brenton Foley's now moved ahead of Josh Ben, so the more experienced man in the Dodge Viper SRT is now ahead of his stablemate.
He's really handing the back of Lewis Wedding as well, who's not quite on Bolger. He goes round to the outside on Osrob there. That's a bold move. Osrob's taking the preferred line though. Bolger's just got so much speed there in this end of first to the second sector. So as they go down the back straight, Osrob pulls the inside. Bolger's gone for the outside. Wedding is waiting patiently to see if he can pounce. And Osrob's gone very deep. He's gone out of the picture deep. He's in the grass. That is terrible for Osrob. He's just dropped 5, 6 positions there in 1 corner. That is very unfortunate for him. And Bolger takes the podium place there. As we look at a replay, as they come down the back straight here, we're going to watch Osrob. We see they're side by side, and Bolger breaks regular time. Osrob just sort of sails off on the marbles, can't get it stopped, and off he goes into the grass. So not good there.
Yeah, just too late on the brakes. He went for the defensive move, and he was just way too late on the brakes. You could hear it on the engine. He was really struggling to get that car stopped. So he's gone all the way from 3rd place down to 9th. So he was actually I got the impression he was starting to be a little bit of the cork in the champagne bottle for a moment there. He was under a lot of pressure from the several cars that were behind, and unfortunately for him, that pressure got released probably in the wrong way for him.
Yeah, and he's now been replaced by a red cork in the bottle in the form of Steve Bolger, who is now being pressured by Wedding. So Wedding and Bolger were pressuring Osrob. Now it is the turn of Bolger to be pressured, as we're just seeing Mike Coulston make a move there on Josh Ben.
Yeah, and a little bit of over and under treatment there from Mike Coulston on Josh Ben. A little bit of lag issue there for the 66 Acura NSX Fluxport drive. He's gone very wide though. That's going to put pay dirt to that little scrap. And in actual fact, he has let through Osrob and Josh Ben. So all that bit of hard work for Mike Coulston coming undone at turns 3 and 4, sailing wide into the grass and coughing up those spots very quickly.
Yeah, it's not what he wants. Bolger's made a little bit of a gap on Wedding, but way out in front now is Devenish and Noah Tara. They've got almost 3 seconds on people behind them, and they're still quite close. This battle could still go either way, as Noah Tara is really harassing Devenish. Devenish probably hasn't felt this much pressure from someone who isn't Wedding in quite a while.
Yeah, I think Devenish will probably be wondering what on earth he's gotten himself into here, where on earth Noah Tara has found all his pace. It's certainly a fresh breath of air as far as we're concerned in terms of him potentially contending for a race win here, but I mean, it's very early days. Let's give it its due. We'll see what happens after all the pit stops are shaken out.
We are only 5 minutes in so far, as we just see Josh Ben get on the grass there. Oh, that's a big wiggle. He's on the grass again. And
massive moment.
Osrob says thank you very much. So Osrob, after losing 6 positions, has already gained 2 of them back just through sheer pressure alone.
Fastest lap from Steve Bolger, a mid 40.6 at the moment, 40.696 there on your screen. Josh Ben, not the only person we've seen have a little moment through that corner. We saw Will Devonish have a moment during qualifying as well, as everybody tries to take as much speed as they can through that 12th corner. It's actually aptly named Ferrari. Of course, Ferrari's more so known for their speed in Formula One and all sorts of endurance racing in GT3. We haven't seen it. There's a Ferrari in this field in the hands of Lion Mitch, but taking liberties with that corner is not something you want to do this early in a race, especially with the rear end dancing around the way that it was on that Dodge Viper. Let's have a look and see if he's going to line up a pass on Ozrob. We've seen Ozrob go deep here under defence and under duress the last couple of laps. A bit more measured this time around. And actually, look at the difference in the lines there, Bagsy. A lot more curb for the Viper and for the Acura behind Ozrob's Porsche there.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they may be a bit more stable on the curbs than the Porsche of Ozrob, and so he's just giving them their dues. And I mean, he was a lot faster than either of these guys. The only reason he's battling here is because of his incident. Speaking of battles at the front, these two are very close together, and Noah Tara is not letting Will Devonish sleep at all. He is so close behind him and has been threatening him non-stop. Devonish is, look how close he gets there. He's got a lot more mid-corner speed than Noah Tara, but he's struggling a bit on some of the exits, which is costing him the opportunity to overtake because these are some short straights. As in the background, you can see Wedding. Bolger's gone very defensive already. What is going to happen here is Wedding going to drive clean around the outside of him. He is so far, but there is another right-hand corner here, so Bolger can keep on his quarter. He's going to be able to have the line through there, but Wedding's just able to go all the way around the outside. Well done, Wedding there. And that's also put Foley right onto Bolger too.
That was a superb move from Lewis Wedding. He committed right around the outside, and I think that the Gravel Rash Racing driver there of Steve Bolger was probably just a little bit tentative, as Wedding has a little mid-corner moment there. He's probably a little bit tentative going in there, didn't know where Wedding was going to go, whether he was going to try the over or the under, whether he was going to commit right around the outside. But this is a good little battle between these three for the last step on the podium very, very early in the race. Coming back to the battle that's just ahead of them at the moment, this battle here between Noah Tara and Will Devonish, as Will just manages to stretch away a little bit. If any advice I could offer to Noah Tara here, and I'm not playing race engineer because we're not sitting in the pit paddocks or in the boxes trying to tell them what to do, but with some of the driving that he's exhibited so far, being behind Will Devonish, he's definitely got some pace, there's no question about that. If I were him, I'd be looking to employ the same sort of tactics that we've seen Lewis Wedding imply over the last couple of races, and that's if you're in there behind, just sit behind. You don't need to worry about trying to get the overtaking move done. You don't need to necessarily need to lead every lap of the race from the front. Sit back there, save yourself some fuel, save yourself some tyres, put yourself in that right strategy window to make a move later on in the race. Set yourself up, play the long game.
Yeah, it's certainly a good idea, and we have seen Wedding do that to great effect. This is one of the first races where we haven't seen Wedding go out from the front. He's had to be on the attack the whole time, so we'll see how that affects his overall race strategy. That means that, we're still pretty certain he's going to be in contention for the win, but it might not be quite as easy as it has been for him in some of the previous rounds, as that gap has stretched out a bit between Devonish and Noah. But you'll see in the background of all these shots, the next group of Wedding, Bolger and Foley is actually closing in on both of them. They've been setting faster lap times the last lap, so it was a 1:41.4 for Wedding last time around, a 1:41.6 for Will Devonish. So it's all very close at the front, as Bolger is just reminding Wedding that he's still there. It's definitely not the fastest way through that corner, but definitely the way to try and get into Wedding's head.
Yeah, out of the top 5 cars, the slowest car out of them was actually Noah Tara that time. Last lap around was a 42.4, whereas everybody, actually the next slowest lap after that was Steve Bolger's 42.1. In actual fact, Foley with 42 flat. So these guys are starting to gain, and you can see that visually now. I think Will Devonish at the front of the field has realised that he needs to check out here, and he's doing so. He's starting to put the hammer down, got it out to about a 1.5 second margin at the moment. Whereas Lewis Wedding is very much leading the charge, dragging Steve Bolger and Brenton Foley along with him. and has now latched onto the back of this number 19 Porsche 991.
Yeah, he has got up there really quickly. In the space of a lap, we saw they were a lot closer, and he's going for it straight away. He looked like he was. He's decided against
Good defence.
Noah Tara's defended quite well. There's a bit of a touch there, but Noah is just taking the accepted line through there. Bolger is actually being brought into this now because he's gone for the inside line, or Wedding's gone for the outside. So what was an overtaking move for Wedding could become an overtaking move for Bolger, but Bolger's pulled out of it. Wedding has zoomed up to the back of Noah Tara there. Devonish using the clear air to his advantage with a 141.9 last time, although Wedding did 140.9, so a second faster for Wedding. Like, he's absolutely on fire.
Yeah, he certainly is. And Noah Tara definitely putting on some defensive moves here. Now committing rather early and then moving back to the line. Now this is it, Wedding on the marbles and gets that move done. So that's really... Oh, and did he get a serve there? Looks like... I'm not sure if Steve Bolger just got into the back of Noah Tara there, but that was awfully close. Let's go and have a look at that on the replay, because that was something that I wasn't quite expecting. And we'll look at that from the onboard camera from Steve Bolger's point of view. A little bit of a loud engine note. Did he get into the back of Noah Tara? No, he did not. So just from the angle we were looking at it, just from the angle we were looking at it, looked for a minute like he may have gotten into the back of him, but that was certainly not the case.
Yeah, it's back in the live pictures now. We've got these three are very close together now. Noah Tara, having just lost that position to Wedding, is now under threat from Bolger and Foley, who is looking very racy and much racier than he initially indicated at the start. He's actually potentially going to have a look at Bolger down the front straight here as they are coming through to Expo 92. No one makes a move, but Noah looks like he runs a little bit wide of Apex, and that might give Bolger the opportunity into turn 2. He's late on the brakes. Noah gives him room. Noah has the preferred line into turn 3. Let's see what happens with this camera. That camera takes a very long time, unfortunately, to move around. So, but we can see that Noah Tara has made it stick. Oh, that was a big moment there for Foley, getting right into the back of Bolger.
He got a very good run there out of turn 3, and he just had nowhere to go and just ran straight into the back of the Audi. All these drivers pushing the limits as far as they can. Now Steve Bolger has a bit of a look down the inside here. Noah Tara leaves him some space, and that's a very good pass. Is it going to result in a change of position permanently? The answer to that equation is no. Noah Tara manages to hold off, but it's coming together, and they're now 3 wide across the track, and Foley's going to be the beneficiary out of all of that.
What a move from Foley there. Just took advantage of the fact that they had a small bit of contact, compromised them through the corner, and now he's through into the podium place. And speaking of podium places, the other two just ahead, well, I say just ahead, a fair way ahead of this now by 3.5 seconds. Wedding has got right onto the back of Will Devonish here. He is absolutely going for it. He's showing all the pace that he was missing in qualifying.
Yeah, I think Wedding realised pretty quickly that if he didn't get past this group of cars, that he was going to be sort of stuck behind them for a good period of time. So he's made that move, and now it's the time of Brenton Foley and Steve Bolger to see if they can do anything about that gap ahead. You're right, Bags. It's out to 3.5 seconds. There's another battle behind this one as well. 6th, 7th and 8th place. Termo, Josh Ben and Ozrob all together. And you're right, if we cycle back through the field, Lewis Wedding is right on the hammer of Will Devonish, and unfortunately it looks like we just lost Liam Mitch on that last lap as well. So that's our first DNF of the race, but here's the battle for P1.
Yeah, Wedding has been harassing him all through this first sector so far, and it's less than 2 tenths between them, as you can see on the timing board just there next to underneath Will Devonish's name. So down the back straight here, and Wedding is looking as good a chance as any to make a move. He's already done it once down through here. He's decided against it though. He doesn't want to get on those marbles. He's just staying right there behind Will Devonish. He's just almost pushing him through the hairpin there.
And the battle pack behind has started to slowly chomp away at the advantage too. The advantage was 3.6 seconds at the start of the last lap. Oh, Wedding very wide. And oh, she's off the track. What's happened to Wedding? He got onto the marbles and he's going to surrender a whole bunch of places here. You have to watch the rejoin. He's going to come back on behind Noah Tara. That is a very rare Lewis Wedding mistake.
Yeah, let's have a look at the replay here. He's right behind Devonish there, and let's see what happens. going on board now. Oh, he just got in way too deep. He was way too fast, not expecting how fast Devonish would go through there, and he's just gone now into the grass. Foley goes past. Who else? Foley goes past.
Bolger and Tara.
Bolger and Tara go past as well. So back to his starting position of 5th for Wedding, and he has all that work to do again, and that is a very happy Will Devonish at the front.
I didn't realise how close he got to the back of Will Devonish there in that move. He was super committed through turn 9. Turn 8. I had no idea how close he came to actually, literally punting the back of Will's car. That was extremely close, and great shots too from the helmet cam aboard that Nissan GTR.
Yeah, Will Devonish also had a bad lap as well. I'm not sure if he's starting to have those tyres go off on him or something, but Foley's actually catching right up to him now as well. So as we watch Wedding close back in on Tara for the second time, it's the potential for the lead to change to the front again. So it seems like those who are at the front are struggling a bit more than those who are in the mid-pack.
Having a look at what's happening on the timing screen as well as Wedding's having a bit of a Morse code moment there on the back of Noah Tara's car.
That's the yellow flag. Is that Foley? Foley's around.
Yes, it is. It's Brenton Foley. He's around off a dry sack corner. Championship changing stuff again. Geez, this is kicking off everywhere, left, right and centre. So he actually ranged onto the back of Will Devonish's car here. Well, he lost the back. Well, Foley going sideways is nothing new, but that's going around in a circle.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. And probably cost Lewis Wedding the chance to get past Noah Tara there as well.
That did take away a passing move for a very brief moment. The yellow flags came out. I think Wedding was pretty much awake to that and realised what was going on. I was actually about to say, looking at the timing screens for that, at that very moment, just before Foley had the spin, the top 9 cars after the first 20 minutes were only separated by the length of turns 5 to turn 6. The other 2 cars that are out there at the moment, Coops and Rhodey, are quite some considerable margin off. In actual fact, Rhodey's not too far away from being lapped, as we had a very brief yellow flag on the front straight for a moment. I don't know what that was for. I'm wondering if that might have been for Mike Coulston. Looks like Mike Coulston may have had a little bit of an issue and dropped a bunch of time, and in actual fact, as we wait for him to get across the line, that happens to be the case. He's had a very poor last sector, has Mike Coulston. But nonetheless, Foley has had a moment. Wedding has had a moment. Noah Tara has been mugged, and Will Devonish at the moment has led every lap of this race.
Yeah, so Will Devonish has, despite being under pressure several times, has had a relatively quiet race. We're only 18 minutes in so far, so we're still about 12 minutes away from pit stops. And yeah, it's going to take a little bit to get through, see how these pit stops go, because that could really change the face of the race as well.
Yeah, absolutely right. And then we have a look here to see what's going on as Lewis Wedding's now managed to make his way finally past Noah Tara. And then he's actually charging away. This group that was very close together is actually split apart now quite considerably. It was a lot closer than that a few laps ago. Lewis Wedding looks, I'm not sure, every time I look at the front of this car, I see the little side lights nearby to the front fenders, and I keep thinking that the car's got damage on it, but we clearly know it doesn't have any damage on it. That's just the way the car's been designed. So at the moment, Devonish leads from Bolger. Wedding has somehow found his way through all that after Foley's spin and also getting past Noah Tara. So that's 3rd and 4th. Josh Ben now very close behind Noah Tara for P5. And then Ozrob and Turmo, the next closest together, being pursued by Brenton Foley. So let's go back and have a look at this little battle, as Ozrob has had his fair share of moments in this race so far, only 20 minutes old. And then behind him, Turmo and the recovering Brenton Foley. And it's good to see a couple of the Playboy Racing guys in the live chat. They're not taking part in the race tonight. Glenn Miles having a few little health troubles at the moment, but he's throwing his case firmly in the Turmo camp and supporting his fellow competitor all the way. And Brian Walsh just doing his best to make sure that his teammate stays awake at the moment. Don't know what all that's about. Actually, I do know what that's all about, but I'm not allowed to say it.
You know what all that's about. Back at the front, Devonish is coming under pressure yet again from someone else. He's really, he's like a royal at the moment. He's just going around meeting everyone who's trying to take his throne. And at the moment, it's Steve Bolger who is coming up behind him as we see the laps traffic of
Rhodey.
But in the first sector alone, Bolger was half a second faster than Will Devonish. He's a 10th faster in the second sector, and yeah, that gap has come right down from where it was just a lap ago. So yeah, is Bolger going to be the next person to spin as he comes up to the back of Will Devonish?
I'm not sure. I wouldn't put it past. Steve doesn't normally make a huge amount of mistakes. He has had some really, really good drives, not just in this championship, but in the previous championship as well. He picked up a podium. He was on track for a podium at Interlagos at one stage, and he unfortunately finished fourth there. But having a look at his copybook so far, he missed the last round at Hockenheimring, but he's had a 7th at Sydney Motorsport Park, 4th at Spa-Francorchamps, and then 3rd place at Brands Hatch. So that was... He actually finished ahead of Brenton Foley on that occasion as well. Brenton Foley did not like Brands Hatch at all. Steve Bolger's got so much speed through turn 4. Look at the amount of closing speed that he has on Will Devonish, as Lewis Wedding is now starting to range into view. So if Steve Bolger's going to make a move, he's going to have to make it pretty soon. Otherwise, Wedding's going to be right on their hammer in probably about the next 5 or 6 laps.
Yeah, Bolger and Wedding set almost identical lap times last lap, but something to keep in mind is that Bolger set the fastest time of anyone so far in the lead up to this race with his 1:39.7. So he can get the pace in a single lap. It remains to be seen if he has it over the course of the race, but at the moment, clearly, he's coming into this car and this stint, and he's really, really close as anyone's been for a little while on Will Devonish. So as we're coming through the final sector at the moment, we'll see how he goes. He's currently, less than 3/10 behind. So his best chance will be onto the main straight here if he can keep up with his passing. There's the centre chicane on the right there, which means we've only got these 2 corners before the final hairpin, which is where you can make a lot of time if you're late on the brakes and get a good slingshot. As you see, he's much later than Will Devonish. He gains a lot of time there, and he has a very good run as well. So he's in position here if he can keep behind Will.
That car's cornering extremely well through some of the more high-speed and low-speed corners. You could see that he actually had a much, much better braking performance into the final corner, and he got around that corner much, much better than Devonish did as well. So just wondering whether Will's maybe just managing those tyres a little bit. We are starting to get into the window where they will be planning their first sequence of stops, probably in about the next 10 minutes sometime. And then that'll start to dictate where everything will wind up getting out to the other side of this race. So if you can go that little bit longer than your competitor, you might be right in the window to take a shorter stop toward the end of the race. Now, nobody's really done the Lewis Wedding trick here and sat behind anybody for any extended length of time to be able to save fuel and save tyres. Everyone's been really, really going for it, and Steve Bolger's going for it down here at turn 6, but wasn't quite far enough alongside. And given the fact that everybody's been going at it, I probably expect everyone's fuel stops to take place over about a 2 to 3 lap span, I think. Everybody would sort of be in roughly at the same time.
Yeah, I think so. We're used to Wedding going a fair bit longer than everyone else because he just sits out the front and saves. But yeah, this time is very likely to have everyone on at almost exactly the half-hour mark into the race. Excuse me. Yeah, just having a look at Bolger here in his car, he is going to be an interesting one later in the race because we've seen this is when he comes into his own, but also because he's been looking after his tyres a lot better than Will Devonish. You may, if you've been watching Formula 1, their questionable graphics on tyre wear and usefulness. We have the actual data here and can see exactly how much of their tyres they've used, and from 100% down to 0, there's about a 6% advantage for Bolger on his tyres.
Well, it looks like he's actually using his tyres a lot more. Opportunistic move down here. Great job, great pass. Fantastic move by Steve Bolger into turn number 2. Takes control of this race. Let's have a look and see if he can stretch away now from Will Devonish. And I think he's probably pulled that trigger now because Lewis has started to really chomp into that margin. It was about 3.6 seconds. It's now 2.2. So I think Steve Bolger decided, you know what, time is now, get the job done, and just trying to insulate himself here a little bit from the hard-charging Lewis Wedding because, well, Will Devonish we know is a difficult man to pass. Steve Bolger's taken him by surprise, I would say, at turn 2. Turn 2 is really not a spot we expected anybody to really have a serious red-hot go, but it was a very, very solid pass.
It's the sort of corner where if you get corner 1 right and you stay right behind someone, then you've got a better chance into turn. You need to have a really good run off the final hairpin to get someone to turn 1. If you're just a bit patient with it, you can get them into turn 2 if you surprise them and get that line. And if you have very good mid-corner grip, which Bolger definitely does have in that Audi. Now what he wants to do is spend the next 5 minutes getting this gap out so he has the biggest gap over Wedding and Devonish as possible, as Devonish has a little sojourn in the dust there. The biggest gap he can coming in to the pit stops to avoid any potential undercuts or pit stop mistakes.
This gap at the front, no matter who's been leading or who's been second and who's been third, has really ebbed and flowed a lot. I think the biggest we've seen it get out to so far is about 2 seconds, and it's really started to get close together again. It's top 3 all very much in the same shot now, as this will be probably the first laps that Bolger has ever led in GT3 competition, but we're starting to see the battle pack behind is really starting to get really angry and really feisty at the moment. Josh Ben has found his way through into 4th place. Noah Tara back to 5th. Foley's now recovered to 6th. And then Ozrob tucked in behind. Termo running a bit of a lonesome race at the moment. He's all on his own in 8th place, and I get the distinct impression he may have made a little mistake somewhere on a previous lap. Bags, you'll probably dive into that and see where that lap happens to be, because he was running pretty solidly for a little while. And then back to Mike Coulston, Coops and Rhodey, the last couple of cars on the lead lap and in this race. Still just the one retirement to date, as Josh Ben still continues to head this second train. They're not really making any impression into the top 3. They are 7 seconds behind and really much pretty much in their own battle at the moment.
Yeah, they certainly are. And just looking at Bolger's extended his lead out at the front. But yeah, we've got sort of the podium battle, and then we've got everyone who isn't on the podium battle with these 4. And the gaps have kept opening up and closing a little bit, because Foley was behind Ozrob at one point. They've swapped a couple times on this. Ozrob and Josh Ben have swapped a couple times as well. But Ben just seems to slowly be getting ahead in that PBF car, getting ahead of the rest. He's still doing 142s though, when Wedding and Bolger are doing 141. So he's on par with Will Devonish at the moment, but he's still a bit slower than Wedding, and Wedding's in the pits.
Well, that's a bit of an early stop for Lewis Wedding, so we didn't quite expect that, but you are right, he is in the pit lane. This train has gone past him. We haven't just seen him in back a shot. I got the impression that Foley was about to size up a move on Noah Tara, and it looks like he's actually had a bit of a moment there trying to get that job done, but he's decided to pull out of it. He gave Noah Tara a little bit of a move there, or a bit of a nudge in the rear bumper, and it hasn't come off, so he's just backed out of it. And I just get this impression, Bagsy, he's got a bit more speed on board, and he's sizing a move up somewhere on this circuit, but he just didn't quite pull the trigger at the right moment there.
Yeah, well, he's been just behind for such a long time now. You're wondering if he's just not quite confident in making the move yet, and he's just wondering about it. We see Wedding is out of the pits now, so he's just going through corner 1 now, as it looks like our leader Steve Bolger is coming into the final sector. So you're losing a good chunk of a lap when you go into the pits here. So some of those people further back, especially in the group we were just looking at, are going to have to be careful to make sure they don't go a lap down. It's a safety car at that point. There's a bit of a dangerous safety car window for them there.
Yeah, I get the impression that there'll be a few stops coming this lap. Looks like the Gravel Rash Racing crew are getting themselves sorted for when their stop's going to be. And the 2 race leaders so far have gone through in first and second. We go back to the 3rd place battle. This is now Josh Ben, who's moved up to 3rd. Tara's 4th. Foley's in, so Lewis Wedding is in last lap. Foley's in this lap. So covering each other off as in terms of pit stops, and just trying to stay, I guess, on the same strategy. Foley obviously thinks that he's got the pace to be able to get up to the back of Lewis Wedding if he can maybe run in some clean air and not have to worry about the traffic. So I actually like that move from Brenton Foley. I think he was tucked up behind Noah Tara and maybe just trying to run a few laps in some clean air, depending on what the strategy is for the drivers in 3rd and 4th place currently, might be the right thing. Noah Tara's gone off the road there at turn 4, and someone else had gone off as well and kicked up a bit of dust. I just couldn't quite see who it was. It may have actually been Will Devonish ahead of these guys that left a bit of dust for them to drive through when they got to the same point on the circuit. What are you seeing out there, Bags? Are you seeing that Brenton Foley's on the move in pit lane?
He's on the move. Wedding is a fair way ahead of going through the first corner. Foley's only just taking off his pit limiter, so there is a pretty big gap there. Wedding getting the undercut from the looks of it. Fresh tyres are going to be very valuable. As we're seeing, Wedding's final sector was a 33.6, so we'll see what other people are doing in that final sector soon when they come through. But yeah, it's not could be quite a fair bit of time gained for Lewis Wedding in this. But he's pit a lot earlier than we're used to, because we're used to seeing him be one of the last people to pit. But he pit 3 full minutes before the half-hour mark, and this is a 2-stop race. But you've got to be careful about when you make your last pit stop. You don't want to be running dry at the end.
Into the pits this time around comes the second PBF car of Josh Ben. The top two, Bolger and Devonish, have gone through. Noah Turra and Ozrob also going through. As we look a bit further afield to see where Turmo is, he's in the lane now as well. Oh, very, very nearly overcommitted on the pit lane entry there as well. He was heading for the wall. Manages to get that Chevy Camaro sorted, and looks like one of the flat spot racing cars is in as well.
Yeah, Coulston.
And that's Mike Coulston. He's come into the back of shot there as well. I'm liking what Steve Bolger's doing at the minute. He's managed to get this margin out quite considerably. It's out to 6 seconds. Wedding's out on the circuit and back up to 8th place. But Will Devonish has had a shocking last lap. He did him 144.3 to Steve Bolger's 141.2.
I think you're right about that dust that you saw, being as Wedding has just chucked in a fastest lap of the race with a 140.6. So that is 0.6 faster than Bolger's last lap. But yeah, I think you're right about that dust we saw before being from Will Devonish going wide ahead of them.
Yeah, he had a very scrappy Sector 1 and Sector 2, so that lays a testament to the fact that that's probably what it was. Wedding's quickest lap of a 40.653 displaces Steve Bolger's 40.696, so only fractionally quicker, and race leader is coming in. So a 6-second advantage for Steve Bolger, and into the pit lane he comes. And Devonish now going through, so this is a good thing for Will Devonish if he's able to go that extra distance. But I dare say that trip across the grass and the dirt, his tyres are probably screaming at the moment. Who else is in the pits there, Bags? It looks like we've got Oz.
That's Ozrob. Yeah, Ozrob in the pits as well. So he's right there. He's come in with the rest of them as well.
Well, he certainly is. And as we looked a bit further, Noah Turra has gone through as well. So let's see what's happening back here. Lewis Wedding's coming up to the final sequence of corners now. Bolger and Ozrob are still in the lane. We're just waiting to see what's going on with them as Wedding's down to the hairpin now. So I don't know what's happening here, because Steve Bolger is now only just getting going in the pit lane. So I'm wondering if Steve Bolger had some damage to repair there, Bagsy, because he's lost out majorly here to Lewis Wedding.
Yeah, that's crazy how much longer he had in the pit lane, unless Wedding short filled, which I doubt. But yeah, that's a lot of time lost for Steve Bolger that is quite unexpected, because he's now come out and he is 5 seconds behind Lewis Wedding. So that's an 11-second turnaround right there. I mean, I know Wedding's been doing fast laps, but it wasn't that much faster. So it was just that time stopped for Bolger, which is a lot more than it really should have been. Yeah, it's boggling really, because he was very much in control, and we know the undercut isn't worth that much.
No, certainly not. I mean, Wedding, we know, can pump in a good lap. Brenton Foley, speaking of pumping in good laps, has now lowered the mark again to a 40.513 and has already gone purple through Sector 1 again as Devonish comes in. Noah Turra continues on. So that's surprising that Noah Turra has been able to make that fuel tank last that long, which bodes well for him toward the end of this race, Bagsy.
Yeah, well, it certainly does. He's getting to the point where his final stop is going to be a lot shorter if he's clever with his fuel and doesn't put as much in. Yeah, he won't have to go very far at all.
So 55 minutes still remaining in this race, and most of the drivers have stopped already, except this man is still going. We believe that Rhodey, Coops and Coulston, and we know Coulston's been through the lane. Looks like Coops and Rhodey have also been through as well. So just the number 19 Porsche, the man who sat on the pole for the very first time, is yet to stop. And Brenton Foley looks like he's continuing to pump in the quick times here. Looks like he's about to set another very, very quick time in his pursuit of the podium. And there it is, a 40.212 for Brenton Foley. So he's really starting to choose some time out of people here. In actual fact, he's managed to navigate his teammate as well. So up to P4 on the road is Brenton Foley. So it's currently Noah Turra from Wedding, Bolger, Foley, Ben, and Will Devonish has come out in P6. So I'm not sure about this, Bagsy. I know Devonish has had a pretty sluggish sort of couple of laps, and he did have that bit of that lap where he went off the road a couple of times. So he is behind Steve Bolger like we expected he would be. But Josh Ben's now jumped him, Foley's now jumped him, and Wedding, who was behind, has jumped him as well. So I'm wondering what's going on with Wedding's strategy here. Now, there's a yellow flag on the circuit very, very briefly down here at the final corner, and looks like that was for Rhodey, as our race leader finally now takes service.
Yeah, 21 laps for Tara there, which is very impressive. 22 if you include formation lap, which isn't obviously quite as stringent on the cars in terms of fuel usage. But yeah, quite well done. I think it might just be the tyres that is doing some of this and potentially different fuel loads. But yeah, Bolger was just really... Actually, Bolger's ahead of Wedding. What happened
Yeah,
there?
I'm not sure what's going on. You might want to have a look. Actually, it's a bad sector for Lewis Wedding. It was a bad sector in Sector 2 of this lap for Lewis Wedding, so he's gone off somewhere again. Another Wedding mistake to the tune of 6.5 seconds it's cost him. So that's why these two have swapped places again, as they're coming up on some lap traffic in the form of coupes. Now, where's Noah Turra in all of this? That's Rhodey coming out of the pit lane. Noah Turra is still stationary in the lane, and I don't know if he's on the move or not yet, but Bolger back to the front of this race, Lewis Wedding in behind, game on.
Yeah, so Wedding did the same spin that we saw Foley do earlier, so that's why he's ended up back where he is. So that's
Down at
quite
Drysack corner
unfortunate.
in turn 6.
Yeah, that's quite unfortunate for him, but it's fortunate for us because it means we've got a race on again.
Yeah, it certainly does. And they've got a bit of this lap traffic that they've just got to try and find their way past. I think Coops will just do the right thing here and move it over off of turn 5, and he does, but that actually looked like it might have advantaged Wedding for the minute. Bolger's had to go defensive super early. In actual fact, they cut across the nose of Coops very quickly. Bolger's going to force Wedding to go the long way round here and leaves him some space, but just escorts him far enough alongside. But Wedding's going to sweep through and take the advantage back at turn 7 and runs two wheels through the grass between turns 7 and 8. And is back to the front of this race. But he's very wide again, Lewis. This is very un-Lewis-like. And I thought he was about to go sailing off the road there for a minute. Looked like he was very, very heavily committed down there at turn 9. But he's really wringing the neck of this GTR. This is very, very un-Lewis Wedding-like. We have not seen this.
Yeah, he's being pushed like he hasn't been pushed at all really this season. So it's quite good to see really. But we are seeing a few little cracks here and there. And yeah, it took him a while to stabilise the car after getting past Bolger there. Just a lot of going wide, a lot of sliding of the back as well. It's not things that we usually see from Lewis Wedding. And after all that, Josh Ben is now in third, and he's only 7.5 seconds off this leading battle. So, another mistake from these two are coming together, and then he is right back in it. And he has Devonish and Foley both within a couple of seconds of him. And Osrob, after that spin, still in touch with a podium position because he's not too far down the road as well. Noah Turra, the biggest loser though, staying out that long has cost him a lot of time on those tyres doing slower times.
Yeah, and just looking at his outlap as well, wasn't too flash either, so he hasn't really got up to speed as quickly as he could. Steve Bolger very, very wide off of turn 5, and that's going to cost him quite a lot of time to Lewis Wedding as well, probably several tenths of a second there as well between turns 5 and 6, as that's a very, very fast part of the circuit. Wedding looked like he was almost struggling to get it stopped down there at turn 6 for a minute. In actual fact, let's go back and have a look at this battle that you were just alluding to here. This is the battle over the podium spots. So this is Josh Ben, Will Devonish and Brenton Foley. Now, Foley was ahead of Devonish for a little while there, I believe. He was actually ahead of Josh Ben too. So Foley's made a mistake somewhere, dropped back behind these guys. And Josh Ben, I must say, doing rather admirably here in the Phil Boat car, earning points not only for his own Drivers' Championship, but for the PBF Team Vodafone team on the team championship. That's Coops around. That is very, very dangerous off of turn 11. And all of them get through there in very, very quick time. That could have been an aeroplane crash. Here goes Devonish. He's going to put a move on down the inside at turn 13. No, he thought about it, though. He was very close off at turn 12 to make that move. Although Josh Ben's very, very wide. That's left the door open for Devonish. And they're going to run side by side down the front straightaway here. This is where the Viper will have the legs. But will Devonish do it around the outside like Lewis Wedding did? And the answer to that equation is no.
Almost sticking his nose in there.
Ooh, Foley was about to stick his nose in there, I thought, but that's going to have to make Devonish awake, go defensive. No, he doesn't. He goes on the attack. Josh Ben goes wide. Foley goes sailing through. Josh Ben's lost 2 places in 2 corners.
Just two places in 1 corner. He didn't even get to the second corner before Foley was passed as well. So not a good run there from Ben. He was just a bit too late on the brakes. It didn't work very well for him. So Devonish up into the final podium place, and he is now the one to go on the attack against Wedding and Bolger, who are actually just getting away a little bit from this group.
Yeah, and Wedding has now started to kick away from Steve Bolger as well. He's got about a second and a bit advantage, having gotten past the Audi now. But we know that Lewis Wedding did stop a lot earlier than Steve Bolger, and in fact, most of the field as well. So, depending on what his strategy has been, he hasn't been able to do a lot of this lift and save and lift and coast behind other drivers to try and save some fuel. He's actually been out there pounding the pavement and trying to make lap time to fight back through the field, and now he's trying to put a margin on second place Steve Bolger out in front at the moment and build a buffer for when he comes to that next set of stops, because he might have to stop earlier than everybody else again.
I think the biggest thing that's going to be in this race is the potential for tyre wear to come into it. Wedding's tyres are much more worn than Bolger's out the front there, to the tune of about 10 to 15%. For 15% for rears, 10% more worn at the front.
Here goes Foley. Here goes Foley down the inside of Will Devonish at turn 1. That's a textbook passing move, and the job is done. A little bit of door banging as they head through turn 1. And now Foley's going to be on the inside for turn 2, and he'll hold the line comfortably through 3. So Foley might not like this track, but he's up into what is currently P3 at the moment. And now can he... Oh, very, very hairy moment there through turn 4. He was all sorts of sideways through the corner. Devonish thought about sticking his nose in there at turn 5 at Cedo Ponds and just backed out of it at the last minute. But now, these two, look, seriously, they've got to work together. They've got to do something about this margin. There's half the race is just about done, and Devonish now down the inside immediately fights the position back at turn 6. Foley's going to try and argue the point as well. They're just costing each other time here. They need to work together and actually get onto the back of Steve Bolger pretty quickly. Otherwise, Lewis Wedding might just run away with this race if they're not careful.
Yeah, there's a very good chance of that. And they're also having Ozrob closing on them at a fairly big rate as well. So this 3-car battle could become a 4-car battle before they know it. And that just means the potential for more positions to be lost. We see Josh Ben in the background there, who lost 2 positions to these two just a lap ago. So yeah, another person in the battle, another position he could lose. And it's a decent chunk of points in these 90-minute races. So we'll see how they go. These guys are also, because they all came in later than Wedding, all doing better for tyres as well. So it may be that fuel is not the deciding factor on this race, but tyres, because we've seen people have spins. We've seen Wedding even have a spin. So when these tyres start to go off, it seems to be a lot more difficult at this circuit than at others.
And just seeing the likes of Brenton Foley actually getting sideways out of some of these corners as well, especially in some of the corners we're about to come up to. Not this left-hander at turn 3, but the next one at turn 4. He was all sorts of sideways through this one on the previous lap as the car wanted to dance. That's a little bit more measured from Foley this time around, but the more you slide that car, the worse your tyres are going to be. And he's really hustling the back of this Porsche 997 of Will Devonish at the moment, and really wants that 3rd place position back. He's going to have a look down the inside here at turn 6, but is he late enough on the brakes? Will sees him coming and leaves him the space, and he gets the job done. In actual fact, Josh Ben just avoided the back of that Porsche as well as they were coming through turn 6. Josh Ben was very hot on the brakes into turn 6. And now Devonish finds himself in the PBF sandwich, but they're not making any time on these cars ahead.
Yeah, no, they're just losing time. It was 10 seconds inside this lap. It's almost 12 seconds now. The gap at the front is staying pretty static though, so wondering if those older tyres for Wedding are affecting him a little bit. And keep in mind, he came in about 20 minutes ago now, so he is much more likely to be in sooner than Bolger. The question is he going to be able to make enough time on his new tyres over Bolger to prevent an attack at the end of the race? Yeah, as we mentioned on screen, the PBF sandwich, and Ben was almost into turn 6, the hairpin there. He just took that wider line and was quite fast through there.
Well, this gap at the front has sort of stabilised a little bit now, around the 1.5 to 2 second mark. So Wedding really hasn't been able to get away much further than this. We did see Steve Bolger get a bit further out into an advantage when he was ahead of Will Devonish earlier in the race. He got out to actually over 6 seconds at one stage through Devonish making a few mistakes on the last few laps before his pit stop. But Steve Bolger's just been trucking along nicely here. He's just been doing low 41s. Wedding's last lap time was a 40.676, which is fractionally slower than his best lap. Steve Bolger's best lap of a 6.96. He's just been doing sort of, those high 40s to low 41s, so just managing to do some quite decent laps and stay in touch with Wedding, hoping Wedding makes a few mistakes. And as we have a look at the sector times, Wedding with a 29.3 to Bolger's 29.0 in sector 1, 37.8 to a 37.9 in sector 2, so Bolger just taking a couple of small bite sizes out of Wedding's advantage in this lap alone, and he's just slowly starting to come back at him. I'm wondering if Wedding's just realising, Bags, he's got to save just a little bit of fuel here. He's got to make pace, save fuel, and that lap alone he lost 0.2 over the entire lap.
I think he's realised that if he saves tyres as well, he knows that when he was behind Bolger by almost 5 seconds, he came out 6 seconds ahead, so he figures if he's ahead of him now by, even if it only has to be half a second, he's going to come out a lot further ahead, and he should be able to maintain that gap even with older tyres.
This battle pack's still raging on here. Brenton Foley doing his best to kick away from Will Devonish and his teammate Josh Ben now, as the laps are starting to wind down. Halfway through this race, we're over the halfway point actually, so we know Wedding's out in front being hotly pursued by Steve Bolger. This is the battle over third place, Foley from Devonish and Josh Ben, and these guys have pretty much been together for the part of the race since the first sequence of pit stops, and we think that's due to a lot of drivers having to repair a bit of damage or not turning their damage repair off, as alluded to by Greg Turris Sr. in the chat. And then we come back to Ozrob in 6th place now, and he's still, as you said, Bags, he's chipping away at the guys in front, but he hasn't been able to get as close as he has previously. He's 5.5 seconds behind. His last lap time was actually a little bit slower than them ahead. It was actually 1.2 seconds slower and dropped back a bit more, but he's starting to claw that back again. Noah Turris had a bit of a fall from grace in the front row of the grid. He's now back to P7 and pretty much has lost touch with everything that was going on. He hasn't got the same sort of speed that he had earlier on in the race, hoping for a safety car, I'd imagine. Mike Coulston, having started P10, is now P8, having a bit of a lag spike there as well, so drivers around him will be a little bit worried. The driver behind is Termo, who'd be most worried about those lag spikes, P9, and then rounding out the balance of the field, Coops and Rhodey, both multiple laps down at the moment, but keeping themselves clean.
I think we might have just seen Coops having a bit of an accident.
Oh, safety car! Wow, here we go. Right on cue.
I think if we go back to, if we can find Coops and get a replay there, I believe he might have been the one having an accident.
Yeah, we're just looking to see if that was the case, and
it was one
here
of
we
the
go.
Jerez, definitely.
Yeah, so coming through, was Mike Coulston was in the background, and it was Mike Coulston. That's what the problem is, and Termo. And Coulston is out. Let's actually just rewind it back a little bit and let's just see what happens. So that is most unusual. And they were both on the grass by the looks of things. So here it is. Coulston kicks up on the grass. Turmo did the same thing. Coulston just absolutely planted himself into the wall at turn 12, and Turmo had nowhere to go. But look, they were both out on the grass, fair to say, and that's the end of that. Now, Coulston's managed able to limp this car back to pit lane, but I don't think they're going to be able to repair a wheel.
No, there's no reattaching wheels there. It's entirely done for the day, that one, which is very unfortunate. I believe Turmo didn't lose any wheels though, so I think he might be in the pits also.
Yeah, just looking to see where
because pits are closed, aren't they? So
yeah,
he's had to
correct.
stay out.
Pits are closed under a safety car, so Coulston's come in. So even if that car was repairable, he'd be getting another penalty anyway. But I thought Turmo may have lost a rear wing there, but that was actually the rear wing of the flat spot racing car that was on the ground, not this. But looks like Turmo has got a bit of damage there, and he'll obviously be able to come in. But good thing for Turmo is he's on the lead lap, most importantly, so he can get to the back of the field. Him and Mike Coulston were the last couple of cars on the lead lap. So Coulston now out of action. Let's see where our race leaders are. So they've been caught by the safety car.
This is the big play now in strategy, because they're coming on to the back straight now, so there's still a sector and a half to go. They're only halfway around the lap, and at this point we're only just seeing his third, fourth and fifth come up behind them now. So it's going to be all about the strategy play. Do you take your pit stop now into the safety car, and will you make it to the end? I think if you pit this lap, you might not make it to the end. You might struggle on fuel. It depends on how many safety car laps there are. We saw a 35-minute stint at the longest, which was from Noah Tara. So, I mean, theoretically you could pit this lap. I personally would probably pit on the next lap and then go from there, and you should make it to the end on there. It might be a bit touch and go, but it depends on what people around you do. But almost certainly everyone has to pit in the safety car period, or else you're going to lose too much time.
Yeah, as they say in the classics, Bagsy, this changes everything, and we're now coming up to the part of the circuit where I think a little bit of foxing will start to come into play. People will start to feign going into the pit lane, try and fox your opponent out and psych your opponent out and see if they'll actually take the bait. But we're just going to see what happens in this next little bit. As you said, Noah Tara was able to get 35 minutes on a stint. This is music to his ears. He's now got into the back of the he's now on the back of this train.
If I were Noah Tara, I'd pit now knowing that I can make it all the way through.
Here we go. Look at this. They're all coming in. They're all coming in.
It's just everyone. I've got a pit chart here. I'm just going to write everyone because this is ridiculous. It's going to be really unfortunate for this. Who's coming second for PBF? That is going to be Josh Ben. He's
are they going to be able to do side by side?
Side by side.
Yes.
Yeah, they both got it.
Is Foley actually getting service here? Look at the two.
Yeah, they're both getting service.
Yeah, they are. And Ozrob's having an issue.
No. Ozrob isn't able to get service because they are in the same one as Will Devonish. So Ozrob is going to be the biggest loser here. As here comes Turmo. So this could end up being a fuel mileage race because people might not be able to make it to the end.
This is going to be huge, and I reckon Noah Tara potentially could come out in front here because he's going to have a shorter fill, and yes, he is. He's going to come out in the lead of this race. So the strategy play and the safety car has worked out perfectly for Noah Tara, and it's worked out perfectly. Look at this. Lewis Wedding's going to get shuffled all the way back. He's been shuffled back to about 4th place on the road, having come in the lead of this race, having to take a longer fill. He's now wound up 4th on the road. So Noah Tara gets out, but I think he's going a bit quickly here. He needs to be going at a pace enough to catch the safety car, but he's got to be going at a slow enough pace to save fuel. You can hear that car is just burbling along. Listen to it on the onboard. Yep, just burbling along. Short shifting as much as he can. That's given Steve Bolger's come out P2, Devonish P3, Wedding 4th, Foley 5th, Josh Ben 6th. Turmo will get out in 7th and Ozrob in 8th, but I mean the gap will close back up. That's without question. The problem that you have, Bagsy, when it comes to taking service under the pit stops is you don't know when the safety car's going to come in. You don't know if you're going to get 2 laps under safety car. For all we know, this could actually be the last safety car lap before the restart. If you go through and then end up having to stop again, you might have the benefit of more fuel, but you might not actually have the safety car to benefit you for too long.
Yeah, that's the thing. If I was someone like Ozrob who got held up in that pit stop, once I've caught back up to the field...
Devonish off the road. Sorry, Bagsy. Devonish has just
geez,
gone off the road there. That's a bit unusual.
He's pushing a bit too hard there. But if I was someone like Ozrob, where I ended up having to wait for Devonish in those pit stops and getting shuffled to the back, if the safety car stays out, I just pit again to top up once more, so then you know you're safe to the end, and then that's a pretty big deal because you're able to push when other people are saving, and especially when the safety car's bunched everyone up, you can just keep going, overtake, and that's a way you can win the race. And as the lights on safety car are out though, so that's all academic now.
Yeah,
it's going to be a straight 35-minute fight. Who can make it happen? It's a fuel mileage race now, everyone. Who will be able to save fuel to the end?
well, I was almost spot on when I said it was time for, it could be the last safety car lap, and we were spot on the money. Now, Noah Tara knows the rules now. He knows he's got to wait till the restart line this time around. That's a much better restart from Noah Tara. Behind him, Bolger's going to come under some immediate pressure from Will Devonish, and Lewis Wedding was actually a bit slow away. So it's a Porsche 1, an Audi 2, a Porsche 3. Then behind them, Nissan 4th and Dodge Viper 5th and 6th. Back to the Chevy Camaro of Termo in 7th. Porsche of Ozrob in 8th, who's got a lap traffic between him of Coops, who's 9th on the road, but a lap down. Rhodey 3 laps down. Mike Coulston, we suspected and is now confirmed, is a non-finisher for this race.
He actually dragged that car around with 3 wheels. To try and pit again, valiantly, but unfortunately they told him no, and he's had to retire. So
Change for the lead. Lap 1 on the restart. Steve Bolger to the lead of this race at turn 6. Went the long way round. Takes it away from Noah Tara, and it's all starting to kick off now. Who can make the distance? Tara's in the weeds, and that's going to give Devonish down the inside. He's in the marbles. Tara's going to drop some spots here. And he drops P2. Wedding's going to have to go the long way round. Hairy couple of moments and few corners for Noah Tara.
There's a bump there.
Indeed, there was a little bit of a bump as it's all starting to kick off now. Is Wedding going to try and make this move stick at 11? He does. Tara gives him millimetres of space. Foley goes with him. Elbows out. Nudge, nudge, nudge. They're all in the grass.
God, that's a terrible few corners for Tara there. Being bullied left, right, and centre by everyone.
Oh,
there's a big touch.
Great.
They all saved it.
Great car control. Great car control from Brenton Foley in that little exchange.
He's more comfortable when his car is at an angle, let's be honest. But yeah, I mean, is everyone pushing here because they don't think they can make it to the end? Because remember, this is 90 minutes plus a lap. So Noah Tara I think he gave a bump to Josh Ben there. Yes, Josh Ben's round. We just saw that there in the background, and now he's been run into as well by Termo and another safety car. Well, I think everyone's going to be fine for fuel now, which is a bit unfortunate, but we'll have a look at a replay of that incident just there.
Yeah, so Noah Tara was up the inside of Josh Bennett was at turn 2, so you're right, I thought they were pushing rather hard. Now this I think is going to be warranted of a steward's inquiry after that. That's a bit of a silly move, and Termo lucky to get through that unscathed, or relatively unscathed, but I think that one's probably on Noah Tara there. Just there was a gap left, and he pretty much went straight into the right rear quarter panel of Josh Ben's PBF Team Vodafone Dodge Viper. So if I were a steward or a judge of fact, I would suggest that one is unfortunately on the number 19, Bagsy.
Yeah, I think so, and I think he was probably just a bit frustrated having lost so many positions. You know, he was first at the restart and then 7th after a lap, so it's definitely not what he wants. And we've just got what's that? I can't quite read that from you. You might have to chat there.
I'm just reading here some comments from G-Tuz, who's Greg Tara or Tara Senior, in this, saying that Noah was going to have to drive to a number as he's probably underfueled, but the fact that he also didn't teach him punting somebody as well. So I think he knows that he can pass some things down in terms of words of wisdom, but what he did at turn 2 was probably not one of those. So,
no, that being said, I think we have seen something similar from Greg Tara before, potentially at some point in Automobilista Australia. I'm not going to go look exactly and pinpoint an exact round because it might not have
There
happened.
was the two-wheel moment across the top of
You never know.
Bathurst.
Yeah, that is true. But yeah, that's unfortunate for Noah as well because honestly, his best bet was a fuel mileage race, which it is now not because we're going to have at least 2 laps on the safety car, probably 3, and that should have everyone safe through the end. As I was saying before that incident happened, though, this is 90 minutes plus a lap, so we don't know exactly how that'll play out in terms of fuel. Some people may have short fueled a little bit to try and get that extra track position, but it should be a straight fight to the end now. It'll be, tyres should be better, and at this point I'd probably put Wedding as my favourite.
I would probably tend to agree with you there, Bagsy, and actually I do want to correct myself. It wasn't Greg Tara that did the two-wheel moment across the top of Bathurst. That was actually Greg Nangle, sorry. My apologies to
Greg.
the wrong Greg. Yes, there's multiple Gregs in AMS Oz. But I would tend to agree with you here, Bagsy. If they weren't marginal on fuel already getting in out of the pit stop from the last safety car, then this pretty much almost eliminates the whole entire equation. This now becomes a straight fight, and I think everybody will be saving as much fuel as they possibly can and trying to bring themselves into play very, very quickly, just so they can be 100% assured that they will actually get to the checkered flag between now and race end in about 28 and 3/4 minutes plus 1 lap. But there's some very, very quick cars still in this top half a dozen spots here. So Steve Bolger, we know, has got pace. He had the quickest lap of the race for quite a number of laps. In actual fact, was churning out very, very consistent lap times. Devonish is the same. We know Devonish has got some pace. He's behind Steve Bolger on the road there. We know Lewis Wedding can pull it out of the bag at any time that he so chooses. Brenton Foley is also quick. He hasn't gelled well with the track, but he finds himself in position now. Termo, he might not have the pace, but he is now the lead runner in Silver Cup, would you believe? So
I think I just saw Noah Tara go.
And stop-go penalties for Ozrob as well. So they've come into the lane, and I know precisely what that's for. That will be to do with the fact the pits were still closed when the field came round. I don't think that they got through while the pits were when the pits were quite released yet.
I thought, wouldn't they have been open on that lap though? Yeah, they should have been open on that lap. So that's maybe it was because they were in there too soon, based on where the cars were on the track. But yeah, that's unfortunate for both of them. That's going to cost them a lot of time and almost a lap probably, because they have to serve that penalty under green flag running.
Yeah, you're right. That's the most unusual one. I've not seen that before. I think they might have tried to pull a sneaky and maybe just accelerate into the pit lane when they should have just gently coasted in, because normally they'll be told on their pit monitors when the pits have been opened up for them to come in and serve a pit stop if they so wish. But that is most unfortunate for these guys. If it was a pit lane speeding infringement, it would have been a drive-through penalty, not a stop-go penalty. So
yeah, exactly.
Given that it's a stop-go penalty, tends to lend suggestions that it's for getting into the pits too soon before it was made available to stop. So that's going to take Noah Tara and Ozrob, unfortunately, out of contention. But I would tend to believe that they were just a little bit too soon getting into the lane.
Yeah, unfortunately I don't believe we have a live steward on tonight either who can remove them, but honestly we don't know if they were deserved penalties or not, so we might find out about that
Tends to be agreed by our people in the chat as well that the safety car hadn't reached the control line where it would have triggered the stops to be made. But it is a little bit unusual, especially when we did see that everybody was bunched up behind the safety car on the previous safety car period and everybody peeled into the pits without incident. I tend to think that there is a point on the circuit where the safety car crosses and it then says, okay, the pits will be open this lap. So maybe it hadn't been triggered for some reason. This is a mod track. It is non-stock content in Automobilista, so it may have been a simple case that it may not have registered. We'll never know. But it looks like we might actually be about to get a resumption here. There's a bit of tyre weaving going on behind the scenes, so that would suggest to me that we might be about ready to go racing again, and indeed it looks like we are. The HSV Camaro safety car is in the lane. And control of this field this time around goes to former leader of this race, Steve Bolger, who will be the leader across the stripe this time around. Bolger, Devonish, Wedding, Foley, Termo and Ben are your top 6. Behind them, Turra and Osrob to serve penalties, and Coop's the last man on the lead lap as we get underway again with 25 minutes on the clock plus 1 lap. Foley immediately going for it down the inside. It was about to be 3 wide into turn 1. It's 2 wide between Devonish and Wedding, as it looks like Noah Turra has just been in and served his stop-go penalty, which is good to see. He'll get back out onto the circuit. I'm not sure if Osrob has done the same. Bagsy, you'll probably be looking through the field to see if that's the case. And it looks like they've both come in and got that done very smartly. So good to see that they're back out on circuit, although they're going to be some considerable margin behind this lot, as Wedding is now through into P2, now immediately hustling for P1. He said he was your pick, Bagsy, and it looks like he's not wasting any time whatsoever, but neither is Brenton Foley behind.
Yeah, as they go in there, this looks like potential for double overtake. Foley has got his overtake done. Wedding has not. No, never mind. Foley hasn't quite got it done. The next corner is a left-hand corner, which Devonish has control of. He's right there. They are touching all the way through on the curve. Foley sweeps around the outside. That is a brilliant move there. It's not quite done yet, but I think there it is done now. And he's actually brought his PBF teammate in there. Josh Ben looking like he's going to have a go as well on Devonish. Not quite there. And at the front, it's still Bolger ahead of Wedding, but for how much longer? We're coming into the final set of corners in the sector, and Wedding, that giant GTR is monstering the back of that tiny little Audi, and we'll see Wedding has all the pace at the moment. He's going to take a wider line into the final corner, which means he's going to get on the accelerator early, and as we come out, he is going much faster. Bolger, a little bit of dust there, but he's in the slipstream. Bolger's hooking onto that inside. He's going to make Wedding go a long way around, but that is the non-marbled section. So Wedding is going to have all the traction, although he's got a bit of a slide there mid-corner. That Audi has much better mid-corner speed, so the inside line for Bolger into the first corner, but Wedding just hangs around the outside in the second corner. He's just got a bit more grip there, and Wedding has taken first place.
Here comes Foley as well, buying into this battle. That was a great exhibition of defensive driving from Steve Bolger for a full lap, but I didn't think he was going to be able to keep that up for a full 24 minutes or 25 minutes. As Foley now ranges into view, and Wedding's going to now try and sprint away here. Don't discount Steve Bolger. He's going to have a dive here somewhere. He might be having a dive right now, and yes, he is having a bit of a dive down here at Drysack, and he's going to snatch that position back. And this is going to allow Foley into play as well. It's going to buy right in. Wedding and Bolger, they're going to run side by side. No, Wedding sneaks through. Foley's going to try and stick his nose in here at turn number 8. A bit too far back to challenge. Devonish has really dropped out of this battle. He's falling into the clutches of Josh Ben here as we look from a helicopter cam. Again, Steve Bolger with some defensive driving. Foley trying the over and under, looking for the cutback. Not able to get that job done. Wedding now managing to put the power down and pull away. As we continue to look on high around this last sequence of corners. Turns 12. Bolger's sideways. Massive sideways. Foley-esque. Devonish is now bought into this as well. Josh Ben's very, very deep. Devonish is sticking his nose in there as well. Again, great exhibition of defensive driving from Steve Bolger.
Is Foley going to take the inside line here? There was a tiny car width of space. No, he's just going to go straight around the outside. And that was a very good move there from Foley. Took advantage of the premium line there, and now he is sliding around the second corner. Has he spun out? No, he hasn't. There he is, back into shot. And now he is going to go after Wedding. I'm sure he was impressed by Bolger's slide into the final sector, but he wanted that position. And Devonish, he dropped off the back a little bit, but now he's right there behind Bolger as well. Josh Ben's there, and we saw in the background Termo as well. Can't count him out of a podium place yet, because with all this squabbling here, he could end up in the podium.
Well, Devonish having a bit of a look at turn 6 on Steve Bolger, but he's not far enough, or not close enough behind, rather, to make the move stick. Foley's doing his best to try and hone in Lewis Wedding here, but the sector times are not suggesting, and certainly the 2 wheels in the grass are not suggesting that he's making any real inroads here. 1.8 seconds of deficit. sector times was 0.2 of a second quicker in Sector 1 in favour of Wedding the last time in this lap. Pretty much almost about a 10th difference in favour of Brenton Foley in Sector 2. So swings and roundabouts. Can Foley drag everybody back onto the rear end of Lewis Wedding in the next couple of laps? 20 minutes now is all that remains in this race. A sprint race it has turned into rather than an endurance race, and it's going to start the building up to the hype. But I just think we're just getting to the crescendo here, Bagsy. It's getting to a point where it's all going to kick off pretty soon. Wedding out in front, but it won't be over for everything behind him as it stands right now.
I'm wondering if fuel could potentially still be an issue in this race. I mean, probably not, but you never know with how much they're going at each other. So, you know, Wedding's really pushing at the moment, so I don't think fuel is an issue. I keep seeing him puff up dust as he goes wide around several corners. But, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one here, and, yeah, it's definitely not over yet. We've seen mistakes from all of the top 5 so far, so anyone can win it.
Certainly up for grabs. Wedding staring down the barrel of his 4th win in 5 races in this championship, but it'd give him a very, very healthy advantage heading into the next race in 2 weeks at Zandvoort. For the feature race, you get 25 points for a win, you get 20 for second. So with the margin at 11 points right now between Foley and Wedding, between second and first in the championship, that would then extend out to 16, which is where it was heading into the last round at Hockenheim ring before Foley took the honours there. Wedding's had a moment, so that's allowed Foley to close up onto the back a little bit more. That gap has halved literally in a sector, as Wedding's had a very poor Sector 2. Foley had a great Sector 1. Wedding a very poor Sector 2, dropped a full second. And I don't know what to say. I'm almost lost for words here, Bagsy. We've not seen Wedding make the kinds of mistakes that he's made tonight. He's made several. We don't see that a lot from him. He's usually a very well-measured drive. He keeps it on the black stuff, but we've seen it all through the night. He's put 2 wheels on the grass. He's had a few moments. He's bled some time where you don't expect him to bleed some time. What do we put this down to?
Well, you'd say pressure, but we've seen him be under pressure in several other races and just basically ignore it. I'm wondering if it's this track is just not quite suited to the GTR potentially. You know, there's a lot of medium speed corners, so you need that good mid-corner grip in your car. And while the GTR is a very grippy car, it just seems to be better in a straight line and in the more high speed corners and low speed corners. It's just not quite the medium speed corners, as we've seen as Foley getting right back up under him in the braking zone. And yeah, this is definitely a long way from over here. Yeah, Wedding maybe has thought, I need to save some fuel as well. We still don't know exactly what the fuel situation is with these guys. I also have noticed that Wedding's using his rear tyres a lot more than anyone else, so the potential that he's not going to be able to get the traction down in some places could make it easier for this Viper to get up to him, because we know that its acceleration off corners and top speed is one of its strengths, but going wide is also something that it doesn't need to do, that won't help.
No, Foley doesn't need to go wide and chew up some tyres out there on the gravel either. Just depends, I guess. The GT3 cars normally would run the traction control. Usually it's a factory setting on the GT3 car, but some drivers do elect to turn the traction control off. They feel they have better control of it, a la Brenton Foley. Like, no wonder he gets so sideways. So depending on the kind of drivers that these guys are, whether or not they do run the traction control or whether they decide that they want to run it off, and how much and how fast they put the pedal down, how quickly they progress from, you know, 0 throttle all the way through to 100% full throttle, can tend to chew up those rear tyres. That's something that I've learnt over the course of time from doing multiple track days. Aussie Driver Search, BMW driving experience down there at Phillip Island and at Wakefield Park as well. All about throttle progression, a number of corners, you know, how you progress from, you know, transitioning on and off corners, off the brake, onto the throttle, and how quickly you pick it up. Just depends how much power you get down, how smooth you get the takeoff, how much time you can actually make or potentially lose. It's a very, very big thing. And speaking of things about losing time, getting some word through from the pit lane that Noah Turra's pretty adamant that he did have a notification that said that the pit lane was open when the stop-go penalty was registered. So a little bit of an interesting one there, and he's a little bit upset about the punt that he'd made down at turn 2, obviously that caused that second safety car as well. So as we said, maybe that mod, the track, maybe having a little something to play into that with regards to stop-go penalty. That one is probably going to be debated along into the night, I would suggest.
Yeah, it's one of those things, unfortunately, that AMS just has these issues sometimes with certain tracks, certain pit entrances, and the safety car can often get all mixed up and a bit funky. So, yeah, we can't. Unfortunately, we can't have a live steward.
And we've actually lost Noah Tara as well just now. So,
which is just unfortunate for our pole sitter, but very promising race for him, and I think we'll be seeing him at the point in the field a bit more in the rest of this series.
Well, it's proof he can do it. And if anything, Noah, you're probably going to watch this back a bit later on, and we've spoken a little bit about you tonight, but the best thing that you can learn from tonight's proceedings, mate, is to keep your chin up and keep your head down, because it's definitely something that you've proven you can do. You can run at the head of this field. You can definitely set some quick times. You just got to work on your consistency and, learn from these guys that are on screen at the moment. Watch what they do and do like them, and pretty soon you'll be right up there mixing it with him yet again, mate.
Yeah, certainly will, and you're potentially better than your dad now as well, so you can tell him that I said that at least, and I'm sure we'll hear about that in the chat soon.
Note to Greg, wait for Josh to come back to Adelaide in about 18 months' time, and I'm sure you'll be waiting for him at the airport on that one.
I'm going to have to make sure I drive, because I'm going to take the back roads. People who aren't taking the roads at the front here, everyone is staying on the main road. That is the track, and it's still quite close. I mean, it's less than a second between these, or a second and a half between these top three. So, as we've been chatting about now, they have not been letting up. And it's, Wedding from Foley from Bolger. Our top three, all of who are in with a chance of this win with 13 minutes plus 1 lap left.
Absolutely right. Steve Bolger's just getting it closer and closer to the back of Brenton Foley, and likewise Foley is doing the same to Lewis Wedding. Pretty much very similar lap times that time around. In actual fact, Steve Bolger, the quickest of them all, that time around, a 40.279 to Foley's 41 flat and Wedding's 41.1. So, unceremoniously, Steve Bolger, who owned the fastest lap of the race for a little while, is now starting to play into this battle. Devonish doesn't look like he can go with them. He did a 41.6 last time around, so he's losing time hand over fist to this lot. Started on the front row, did Will Devonish, and is now finding himself in P4. Steve Bolger set a very, very good Sector 1 there. So too Brenton Foley at 28.9 to Wedding's 29.1 and Bolger's 29.0. So,
well, Foley's having a go.
Yeah, he certainly is. He's really wringing the neck of that Viper in pursuit of Wedding. He's right under the rear wing of the GTR, and this is not the first time we've seen this. We saw it at Hockenheimring. We've seen it at Spa. We're seeing it again here. The two leaders of this GT3 World Challenge going nose to tail again, but they've got company and they can't afford to trip over each other here. Otherwise, they're going to send the Audi of Steve Bolger straight through to the lead of this race. So Steve's just setting himself up nicely here. He doesn't need to do anything silly. He just needs to pick his moment.
Yeah, he certainly does. He can let these two fight a little bit and hopefully take advantage of it. If you look at Wedding, he's just struggling with rear traction so much more than anything else. The car's pointing into the corners fine, but he's just not getting that power down. That's where Foley's coming right back at him. We saw Foley almost pushing him around the hairpin because he just couldn't get that power down.
Fourth place, Devonish back there as well. You can see him a bit further afield, so too. You can see Josh Ben, P5, probably one of his best drives as well. He was third in the race for Super 2 a week and a half ago when we did the round at Sydney Motorsport Park. His best result in AMS Oz today. This will probably be his best GT3 result. If I look down the order here for Josh Ben, he's had a 6th on the season at Spa-Francorchamps, so this will definitely be his best GT3 result of the season, a P5. And then Termo, Coops and Ozrob, they're all running some pretty lonely races at the moment. In actual fact, just looking to see if Josh Ben is making any inroads into Will Devonish, and the answer to that is no. So this is really the battle where it's at. Foley has another look again down at Dry Sack Corner. Wedding goes a little bit deep, so that leaves the door open for Foley, but it's not open for long enough to get through. So Wedding just trying to, I guess as Hans would say, he likes to V the corner, just going a little bit deep and just cutting it back to try and get as much straight line power down. You're trying to put the power down when your car's straight and goes straight ahead, not while the car's sort of turning one way or the other. That's where the diff has to do a bit more work rather than just when you're trying to do it in a straight line. And then we're focusing in on this battle because there's not much else going on behind. Everything else is pretty much well strung out.
Battle for the lead's what we want, though. I don't think Lewis was intentionally being the corner there. I think he just went a bit wide and missed that apex there, because if Foley had committed to that move, I think he would have got through, but he just wasn't expecting Wedding to go so deep. Part of it could have been Wedding thinking that Foley was out of control and trying to open up the corner a bit for him. But yeah, it's 6 to 1, half dozen of the other, really. But yeah, less than a second at the front and 10 minutes to go.
What about the tyre situation, Bagsy? What's the situation with tyres and fuel for these leading 3 cars? Because whoever's got the better tyre, I think Steve Bolger might have the better set of tyres here. I just think he's preserving himself a little bit more compared to all the others. He might have a late surge here.
Yeah, looking at front and rear tyres, Bolger has the rest. Foley's rear tyres are in better condition than Wedding's by a decent chunk, 7 or 8%. And then Bolger's tyres are better than both of them by about 7 or 8% for both fronts and rears. So as we look at Foley, just having a look again. Oh no, he spun.
Oh no, half spin.
Not quite.
But that was an invitation for Steve Bolger, and he wasn't quite close enough to get it done. So, in actual fact, I think he must have just come around the corner there and just sort of been a little bit balked and not be able to get the passing move done. So Foley's a very, very lucky boy to be able to stay in front there.
Hasn't cost him much time though. I think we'll see him on the back of Wedding pretty quickly.
It's cost him a half second.
Yeah, Wedding's just still we're watching from his helicopter shot, and he's just not really pulled it away that much. Although Foley seems to be struggling a bit now.
Yeah, that was a bit of an awkward spot for Brenton Foley. That's the second time this race that he's had a moment there, but it's not the first time that we've seen Lewis Wedding have some moments in similar spots. But I must say, Steve Bolger's kept most of this race pretty clean. I don't think I've actually seen Steve Bolger make a mistake at all race long. He's just kept himself in the game. There's a yellow flag out there on the circuit. I'm just wondering what that's for now. It looks like it might be for... No, it's for Rody down here. He's down here at turn 1. I can see it. Where is he? He looks there. He's in the fence. So the yellow flag took away the passing opportunity for a very brief moment, but thankfully these guys all got through there unscathed, and Rody's still in the gravel trap by the looks of things, because Devonish has gone through, and so too has Josh Ben. So if Rody can get himself going, at least he'll get to the flag. He's classified as 9th and last, 4 laps down at the moment, the only car like multiple laps down.
He's done a bunch of damage to the front left-hand side of that car, so every time he goes, I think, hitting the wall at turn 1, so every time he's in a corner, he's locking up the brakes. So he's going to have to either repair that or just limp around for the next 7 minutes.
I think he'll probably come in and repair it. Look, he's dead last on the road. He may as well come in, repair it, and at least finish the race. Even he'll be 5 laps down, he'll be classified as a finisher, which is good to see. A quick cut away from the battle at Pack at the front of the field. Here's Will Devonish. He's still trucking along P4. He's comfortably ahead of Josh Ben in P5. Then he's head back to Turmo, P6. So he's now the leading Silver Cup runner on the circuit. And a penalty for Josh Ben. So that would be for, I must imagine it's for a track violation. That came up very, very quickly. So that's going to hand probably Turmo a position there. Let's just see if we can have a look on the replay about what happened there. Yeah, that's a big track cut. I think that's happened at the hairpin. So we've seen a few drivers take a few unusual lines through that hairpin. And that will be, oh, actually, that must be on the exit there, actually. That's where it came up. So it's on the exit of 7, between 7 and 8, rather. Sorry, I do apologise, not at the hairpin. It's at 7, and between 7 and 8 is where he's been penalised for that. So he now comes in to serve that drive-through penalty.
That's unfortunately because of the safety car going to cost him. Actually, I think
he might be okay here. I think Turmo's too far back, so he will get out ahead. Turmo's going to get out and still be behind Josh Ben here, and yeah, it's the length of front straightaway, so Josh Ben's quite lucky that he doesn't drop another place there. So Turmo's still leading Silver Cup, Coops, Ozrob still on the lead lap, and Rody the last of the lead lap runners. As the battle for P1 is on between Foley and Wedding between turns 5 and 6. Wedding has to go defensive. He's on the inside this time, so We've seen Wedding go deep here before. Foley can't get him on the cutback, or does he? You know, he gets good drive out of that turn 6, but he can't get around the outside. Wedding's going to hold position here. Foley's in the marbles. Now he's in the grass. They're all got two wheels in the grass, and it didn't unfortunately come off for Foley, but he had to try something a little bit different because there's just over 5 minutes remaining.
We have seen him make an overtake around the outside there. He just didn't quite have the traction out of the hairpin and a little bit more marbles, and someone who's not quite as willing to play ball at this point in the race in the form of Lewis Wedding. He had some more willing participants last time, but he knows what Wedding is going to do there now, so perhaps this is reconnaissance missions these few laps and then try and make it pass as close to the end as possible.
Size up your opponent, know where he's weak, know where you can actually get the move done. We've seen all race long that these guys have had different spots where they're stronger than each other. We've seen huge mid-corner speed through turn 4 for people like Steve Bolger and Brenton Foley. Haven't seen that sort of that speed out of Lewis Wedding. Lewis has sort of been a bit better in some of the situations where he's had the medium speed corners, not the high speed corners. Apologies for me burping on air if you could hear me just then. Well, certainly wasn't intentional. These are the corners where we've seen Foley and Steve Bolger get a little bit closer to Wedding. I think it's particularly in the early part of the lap where Lewis Wedding seems to be a little bit better. Foley's had a bit of a mid-corner moment here. Bolger sort of stuck in the draft behind us, sort of followed him in sympathy out towards the edge of the circuit. Foley now with a bit of another look, sneaky look down the inside. We saw this a few times at the Spa round, didn't we, Bagsy, where Foley had just tried to out-fox Wedding a little bit, and he did it once at La Source, where he out-foxed him, sent him wide, got the undercut and led up the hill. But then on the last lap, Wedding actually sort of did it a little bit deliberately and tried to make Foley think that he'd been out-foxed. And then he had the drag up the hill, up Eau Rouge, and then repassed him back into Les Combes.
Yeah, it's Foley didn't quite pick his overtaking point right in Spa. Is he going to be able to do it now? Because if he does get past him into the turn 6 hairpin, it's very difficult for Wedding to get past again. His last opportunity is probably this braking zone here, and it's very difficult, especially when, as we see, that was Brody, I think they're just lapping there, he's on the outside. So it's going to be, we've got 3 minutes left as they cross the line now, so 2-3 more laps most likely, and they'll be 52, which is almost spot on with our prediction, even with 2 safety cars.
Yeah, well, we suspected that the pace was going to be such that we'd get to about somewhere between 50 and 54, depending on pit stops and safety cars, but spot on in the middle of our prediction of somewhere between 50 and 54 laps. We'll get to 52, just judging by where things are at the moment. As they run down to turn 5, this is about as close as Foley's been through turn 5. Can he follow? No, mid-corner moment. He had a big twitch through there. That's what it was. He tried to put the power down too early, and it cost him. If he had been able to get it just right, he would have been in the slipstream and having a go here at turn 6, I would have imagined.
Wedding's line through that hairpin, I know he wants to do it, but it just doesn't quite seem as fast. Maybe it just works for him in terms of how he feels getting the power down, but there's just always a gain for the other person, and it really does open the door a little bit.
Not much more time left in this race. 2 1/4 laps remain in the next minute and before the timer expires. We'll get to, there's about 1:45 left to go now, so this will be the penultimate lap about to commence, lap 50, and then we'll get to lap 51. Sorry, Bagsy, you were 1 lap short. It's actually going to be 51 laps, not 52. Yeah. So we got that slightly wrong. This is the corner where Bolger, Turmo with the drive-through penalty, so where's he out there on the circuit at the moment? He's just come through turn 5, so I think he's probably had an off-track excursion there somewhere, so he's safe at the moment in P6. Actually, he might not be safe in P6, I'd imagine. He's going to have Osrob pretty close to him, so that'll be touch and go coming out of the pit lane as we've now commenced the second last lap. Foley's having a bit of a look at turn 2, but he's not quite close enough to stick it on the inside here. This is now all starting to kick off, and I think these two are starting to drop Steve Bolger. He's just not able to quite go with them.
Alternatively, he might just be hopping back a bit in case there's a large accident that he can just go round instead of becoming involved in.
Better line from Foley through turn 5 that time. Didn't have that mid corner moment. Wedding's just driving it straight down the middle of the track. Foley's going to have to squeeze it down the inside here, and he's going to rotate the car. No, he manages to keep control of it, and they're going to run side by side again. That was very lucky not to be an accident. He has to tuck back in here for turn 7.
Yeah, that was very close from Foley. He has struggled in that corner when he has to take it really, really tight. He's used to having that slightly wider line, so it's not what he wants, and he's only going to have one more lap to go at Wedding because we're coming into the final sector for the penultimate time, and yeah, it's really the only spot he can get him, but Wedding is not willing to let him go around the outside of turn 7 like other people have.
Now Foley's sort of trying to set the move up and set the move up and set the move up, and he keeps trying to pick the same spot all the time. So if you were Lewis Wedding, you'd expect he's going to do something different this time around. They're all very, very close together out of the final corner now. Clock is at 0. This is the final lap of this race. 4.4 kilometres to go. Where is this move going to get done? Is it going to get done? Is Wedding going to hold them off, or is there going to be a last change of position? They've got to let a lap traffic ahead of them as well as Coops, so he'll be furiously being told, get out of the way. The race leaders are coming through. There he is, just fractionally out of shot. Through turn 4 we go for the final time. Coops is in the middle of the road. Oh no! That is a huge moment in this race. Wedding had to go onto the grass, and then Foley went the other way, stayed on the turf. That is going to be very hotly debated after this. Wedding slow off turn 5. He's had to defend very heavily from Foley. Foley squeezing down the inside on the run down to turn 6. Is he going to get it done? No. Wedding's wide. Wedding's wide. Foley sticks it on the inside here, but no way through at the end.
That might have almost been worse for Foley. I mean, Wedding holding his car there extremely well, but that might have been worse for Foley because it denied him the opportunity to set up Wedding down that straight. He didn't get the ideal line, but he's still very close into the final sector here. He's trying every line possible to try and get buzz. Is he going to go around the outside there? He can't quite make it. He's only got one opportunity left, and that will be into the final hairpin. They're going to come around the outside of the centre chicane here. Is Foley going to get the run, or is he going to get overtaken by Bolger? Bolger's closer to him than he is to Wedding, although Bolger's run a bit wide there. Final corner, all or nothing.
Oh no, Foley's in a big moment. Foley's in a big moment. He's going to lose P2. He's lost P2 to Steve Bolger, so Bolger's gone through to second. Wedding's going to take the checkered flag in all of this, so I was about to suggest the same thing, Bagsy. It was going to be turn 13 or bust, but Wedding is going to hold on for this thing. It was bust for Foley. So Wedding from Bolger, from Foley at the end of the day. It was a very hair-raising last lap, especially with the lap traffic. Coops had absolutely no idea that they were coming up on him by the looks of things. Will Devonish, who started on the front row, finishes a distant 4th. Josh Ben's going to come home for his best result, a P5 finish for Josh Ben at the end of the day. So a good result for him there.
Looks like Ozrob's pipped Turmo. Turmo came out ahead of Ozrob after his drive-through, but Ozrob's got him in the last lap here, so it's going to be a 6th for Ozrob. It's a decent recovery after that start spin that put him down to 9th.
No, you're absolutely right. So Ozrob's going to get home for P6. Turmo will be the leading Silver Cup runner home in position number 7, so he has got home for 7th in the end, the Jack Daniels Chevy Camaro. Coops, who was the I wouldn't say the victim, but he was the roadblock in the way on the run between turn 4 and 5 that almost decided that race. He finishes in P8, and Rhodey is the last man home. Benjamin Rhodes, the last man home, in position number 9. So non-finishers at the end of the day for Noah Turra, who we actually have been told was an internet disconnection drama after that all finished. And then Mike Coulston, who ended up in the wall at turn 12, which caused the first safety car, and then Lime Mitch, the only one that did not get home. He was actually the first retirement. We didn't quite see what happened to him after all that, but that unfortunately, those unfortunately were the last couple of drivers to finish the race, or not finish the race. But Bagsy, I don't know what we can say. That was kind of a thrilling finish to that one.
Yeah, it was really the last half hour from the second safety car all the way to the end was just very unexpected in terms of just how close it stayed the whole time. There was never a dull moment, really. Um, sorry to the people who were having a couple of small battles further back, but yeah, we wanted to focus on that lead battle because it was close all the way to the end, and yeah, very well done from all three. And I think we might have them here in the box with us now.
Yeah, they are starting to join us. So the top three, who were pretty much inseparable from that last safety car restart, pretty much all the way to the checkered flag. That was a very, very close fought thing. Probably going to turn to our race winner first for this one, because he was the man that I think we all want to wonder how on earth he managed to keep it together in that last lap. So attention first turns to you, Lewis Wedding. You were made to earn that one hand over fist from what we could see, but tell us about that moment through between the run between turn 4 and 5 with the lap traffic on that last lap. That certainly would have not got your ire up, but it would have put the hairs on our necks, made them stand up quite considerably.
Yeah, I saw Coops down the road about half a lap earlier, and he got closer and closer, and it wasn't until I think it was the second last lap that I realised that time was actually expiring. I thought there was a minute or two left, and we're going to get another lap in. Thankfully, there wasn't. But yeah, I saw Coops about half a lap earlier, and we're getting closer and closer. And I was just hoping I'd catch him after onto that back straight. But when I realised at what was it, turn 4 or 5 or whatever it is on the exit, I had Foley right behind me, and I was halfway through the corner, and I had to make a decision to lift. And if I had a lift, Foley would have just gone straight to the inside. And I would have been sort of pinned behind Coops because I would with the speed I was carrying, I was I was going to get stuck behind him. So I was either run into the back of Coops, slow down, and let Foley go, or just go for it. I thought I was going to end up in the wall on the left hand side, but I kept my foot in it. Somehow didn't die, and was able to get back onto the track with, obviously still in the lead.
Yeah, well, you did lead a good portion of that last stanza of the race, but talk us about your race start as well, because you started a bit further back than what we've been seeing you over the course of the second season of GT3 this year. You did leave your lap in qualifying rather late, and looks like you had to go out for a second attempt at one point as well. Was that intentional to go out so late, or was that just a little bit of timing, or a couple of mistakes, or a bit of everything?
It's just a bit of everything. I think on one of my runs, I come across a bit of traffic when I was going to do a second lap, and so I had to abort it. And then I didn't really get a chance to put fresh tires on, so I didn't get the optimum lap in that I was hoping. Even then, I don't think I probably would have had pole position. I could have found a couple tenths, maybe 2 or 3 more tenths. But to be honest, like the qualifying speed of the Nissan around there wasn't the greatest. But yeah, started a little bit further back than what I would have hoped. But obviously Foley wasn't too far, you know, away, so I wasn't too concerned. And I knew the race pace of the car. Looking at a few other cars, I was a little worried, but as the race sort of progressed in the early stages, it seemed like my car was a lot better, especially after restarts and on cold tires. If Steve in particular at the race start and at I think it was the final or the second last safety car restart, I figured he struggled quite a bit while my tires come up pretty good. My problem was then towards the end where my rear tires actually overheated quite a bit.
Yeah, we did notice in here when we were looking at some of the live telemetry that a number of drivers, including yourself, were struggling with the rear tyre grip. But nonetheless, you've converted it into your fourth race win out of 5 starts in this second season of 2019. So well done, congratulations, and looking forward to see what you can do in 2 weeks' time at Zandvoort Park.
Thank you, and obviously big thanks to everybody. Tonight the field spread is pretty much nil, so I reckon that's probably the closest field as a whole that we've had, so hopefully that continues.
Tend to agree with you there. Josh Baggsy's got our second place man in Steve Bolger.
Yes, I do, Steve. It was a opportunistic second for you in the end there, but you definitely looked like you were in that race and with a chance of a win that whole time. How were you feeling? Because we saw you leading after that first stop by a fair few seconds, and then suddenly you were back behind a decent way. Was that damage repair or was that just longer fueling?
As longer fueling. Wasn't praying for the safety car, I can tell you, because I knew I had a shorter second fuel than Lewis. And I thought we were reasonably even on pace. So safety car didn't help, but and bad luck to Foley on the last corner, obviously inheriting that.
Yeah, you did you feel like you had the pace to potentially, if you'd got past Foley a bit earlier, to get past Lewis as well, or were you sort of happy with the third that became the second?
I was if I had clear air, I thought I had good pace. Certainly in the second half of the stints, I had the car set up on a slow warm up, which Lewis touched on before, made it very hard to defend after the safety car. But I felt I had the pace in the second half of all the stints, but just couldn't quite make a move at any point there. The guys were very quick.
Yeah, a well-run race and very patiently run a well-deserved second. We'll go over to Foley now, who came third, and unluckily third, really, just that final run at the end, trying to get past Wedding and not quite able to. Do you think that the Coops car being in front of you helped or hindered your attempt to overtake him?
Oh, it's hard to say. I kind of had that was the part of the track where I was strongest, and every time we'd get to that part of the track, if I was close to Lewis, I'd be able to have a go. But I think it definitely helped because obviously Lewis had to take to the grass, but yeah, what could have been, I don't know. It's hard to tell, but yeah, threw it away right at the last corner, and was just trying to get a run so I could have a bit of a dive at Lewis at the last hairpin because I noticed over the stints I was a little bit better under braking, but yeah, ended up throwing it away trying to get a run.
Yeah, we saw that turn 6 was the hairpin there was the times you tried the most to get past Wedding. Were you a bit nervous that you couldn't get the traction down coming out of the corner? Because we did see you have a spin there, but conversely, we saw you get round the turn 7 on the outside of people. Do you reckon you just weren't able to do that because of the traction, or because Lewis wasn't going to be a willing partner?
Oh, because Lewis would not leave that door open for me, and as we've seen, he's the masterclass of the field. I don't think I'd be able to get around the outside of him. I knew I had to kind of play to my strengths in order to get it. I kind of drew back to what I was best at from Hockenheim and tried to go down the straight and at the hairpins.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, a good race overall. Unfortunately, about missing out on that second place right at the end there, but well run from all our podium sitters. And I believe that now that you have the points ready to go.
Sure do. So there's been a little bit of movement up and down the field. The top three positions have remained unchanged, although the gaps have moved out a little bit. So we did think that Brenton Foley was going to finish second there for a little while, but he unfortunately finished third, so drops a few more points than what we expected. So the gap was meant to go out to 16 points. In fact, it actually goes out to 20 now because of the third place finish. Will Devon is still in third, Steve Bolger fourth, Rob fifth. Those spots haven't changed. It's behind where it's changed. So Termo jumps up into P6 overall. Leading Silver Cup runner moves up to P6 overall on the road and ahead of the line. Mitch, who didn't finish the race, Greg Turra, Noah Turra, they all stayed the same. Josh Ben now finds himself equal with Noah Turra on points, but on the count back, he's going to go ahead into 9th place overall, which would leave Noah Turra in 10th. And then Coulston and Phil Boak, both of them one didn't score any points and one didn't finish the race, so they're going to pretty much stay where they are in terms of the point standings. So good to see that a couple of drivers have moved up in the realms and as well, and they've also, the points a bit further down the board have also closed up a fair bit. So we've got 3 rounds remaining in this GT3 season. We've got 2 rounds remaining in TCR Oz and 2 rounds remaining in Super 2. And Super 2 broadcast will be coming this Thursday on this channel as well. So if you're a fan of your supercars, join us for the Sandown round. But until then, Bagsy, we're going to wind this one up because it's been great to have you in the Combox, not only in the Combox as per usual, but here in person for a change. So thanks for being around. Great to see you in Melbourne.
Yeah, good to be here on location. It's much nicer.
Certainly is. Also like to a big thanks to my wife Chantel for keeping us fed and watered for the commentary, and also for my daughter Penny for making a nuisance of herself for the last couple of hours. But we'll leave it there, and we'll see you on Thursday. Hans Brunswick will be in commentary for the penultimate round of Super 2. Until then, please drive safely. Bye for now.